Every night, I'd coat my girlfriend's feet in foul-smelling mud, dust them with a pound of flour, and then immediately pretend to be asleep. And every night, she would wake up at 2 a.m., pluck a single hair from my head, and sneak out the door. So I followed the footprints she left on the ground, but unexpectedly, just as I was about to find out what she was up to, I saw a little girl on the side of the road about to be sent flying by a semi-truck. In that split second, I rushed over and saved her, but I was the one thrown 10 meters away, barely breathing. Just as my heart was about to stop beating, a cold, mechanical voice boomed in my mind. God-tier Tycoon system binding successful. Tycoon funds of $100 billion have been deposited into the host Ethan's account. Black card granted the Golden Eyes skill, able to perceive the value of all things and see through the hearts of men. Acquired Grandmaster level Baji Quan skill, capable of defeating 100 opponents. I snapped my eyes open, feeling my body surge with a power I had never known, even able to see and hear a Maybach speeding towards me from 3 miles away. In less than 2 minutes, the black Maybach was right in front of me, and a pair of long, slender legs wrapped in black silk stockings rushed out. She charged towards the crowd like a madwoman. Candy, Candy, where are you? Auntie, the girl I had saved cried out. The woman rushed over and swept Candy into her arms. After confirming the girl only had a few scrapes, she looked up at me, her eyes filled with deep gratitude. Sir, thank you for saving Candy. I'm Chloe from the Sterling Corporation. Please, what can I do for you? The Sterling family will spare no expense, even if it bankrupts us. Ethan stared at the woman before him as her information appeared on his retina. Age, 25. Identity, CEO of Sterling Corporation. Net worth, over $800 billion. Before today, this would have been Ethan's best chance to make it in the city. Latching onto the Sterling family and demanding a huge reward would have been the move. Even with his new $100 billion, it was just a fraction of the Sterling family's fortune. But Ethan just gave her a quiet look, said, "No need," and vanished into the rainy night. Chloe watched his retreating figure, then turned to her assistant. Investigate. I want all his information within 3 minutes. He's my benefactor, and I, Chloe Sterling, will not let him just disappear. Back home, Ethan fixed his gaze on the two people in a photograph on the wall. His Golden Eyes memory recall function activated. He quickly learned that the mastermind behind his parents' death was his stepmother, Linda Miller, and his girlfriend, Jessica Morgan, was sneaking out every night to meet a rich heir. Very well, I'll start by dealing with my stepmother, Linda, and then I'll settle the score with Jessica. I'll make sure Jessica and that rich kid she's hooked are so broke, they can't even get a job delivering food, forced to become beggars on the street. The next morning, Ethan arrived at his family's mansion. As soon as he stepped inside, he heard the sound of things being smashed and Linda's hysterical screams from the living room. Stop smashing things. I'll handle it soon. I'll get that brat Ethan to sign over the inheritance. Then this mansion will be mine, and I'll have the money to pay you back. A sharp slap cut off her crying. Ethan pushed the door open to find the living room in complete chaos. Linda, usually so arrogant, was kneeling on the floor with her hair disheveled, a bright red handprint on her face. In the center of the room sat Blade, the head of Chicago's underground loan sharks, with 4 thugs holding steel pipes behind him. Ethan strolled in leisurely, walking towards the center of the living room as if he saw nothing. Seeing Ethan ignore him, Blade bellowed and reached out to slap his face. Well, if it isn't the worthless rich kid? Ethan's head snapped around to look at Blade, and the man's information instantly appeared in his mind. Target, Scarface aka Blade. Combat power, 65. Peak normal human weakness. Extremely superstitious, suffers from a strange illness causing severe cardiac pain at midnight. Ethan didn't move, simply saying in a low voice, "If your hand touches my face, you'll never be able to hold a fork again for the rest of your life. Also, does your angina act up every night at midnight, right on the dot? You read fortunes?" Blade's hand froze mid-air. Not even his own men knew the secret. How could this kid possibly know? Ethan didn't answer, walking straight to the ransacked display cabinet to search for a purple sandalwood box his mother had left behind. Seeing Blade hesitate, Linda scrambled to her feet and shrieked, "Blade, he's the primary heir. Force him to sign the transfer papers, and this house is yours." Blade's eyes flickered. In the face of a $50 million debt, a little fear was nothing. His face darkened. "Boys, grab this kid. If he doesn't sign today, chop off one of his fingers." Immediately, the 4 thugs rushed at Ethan, swinging their steel pipes. With his back to them, Ethan sighed. "Why must you force me to get rough?" Before the words had even faded, he spun around with a simple side kick. Bang! The thug in front flew back 5 meters as if hit by a truck, slammed hard against the wall, and was knocked out cold. The room fell silent. The remaining 3 thugs skidded to a halt, swallowing hard. Ethan retracted his leg and found his mother's sandalwood box by the coffee table. He wiped off the dust and turned to the stunned Linda. "Linda, you've always wanted this house and the family assets, haven't you? Well, I'm giving them to you now." Linda was dumbfounded. Ethan looked at Blade, a smirk playing on his lips as he pulled out the black bank card. Did you bring a card reader? Why yes, I did. The total is 58 million. Ethan tossed the card over. Charge the full amount. A look of ecstatic joy erupted in Linda's eyes. The fool was actually willing to pay her debt. She immediately puffed up with arrogance. Ethan, you finally know your place. Since you've paid my debt, we're even. Now get out. This house is completely mine. But in the next second, Ethan's words sent her to hell. Who said I was paying your debt for you? He looked at Linda with a playful glint in his eyes. This money is the fee for me to purchase your debt. From now on, you owe the money to me. Linda's smile froze on her face. Blade instantly understood and changed his tune, glaring menacingly at Linda. Ms. Miller, your creditor is now Mr. Ethan. By the way, Mr. Ethan, is there anything I can do for you? Do you need my help collecting the interest? Blade decided he had to cling to this powerful figure. Cradling the sandalwood box, Ethan walked to the door, then stopped and looked back at Linda. I'm giving you two choices. First, get out of this mansion immediately with nothing but the clothes on your back. Second, pay back the debt you owe me within 3 days. If you're a second late, I'll call the police and sue you for fraud and embezzlement. And if you, he said to Blade, don't supervise her, I'll sue you for assault with the security footage from the entrance as proof. Those charges are enough to put you both in prison for a very long time. With that, Ethan strode out of the mansion, the sounds of Linda's heart-wrenching sobs and Blade's men clearing the house echoing behind him. Standing in the sunlight and listening to those sounds, Ethan felt a deep sense of satisfaction. But the next moment, the system issued a new mission. Please spend $100 million within 2 hours. Failure penalty. A random bodily function of the host will be deducted. Example. Permanent 3-second stamina. Ethan's mouth twitched as he read the penalty. System, you're ruthless. Still, spending money was probably the easiest task in the world. Ethan hailed a cab and headed straight for the Pinnacle, Chicago's most luxurious shopping center. Just as Ethan got out of the cab, a red Ferrari pulled up in front of him with an arrogant roar. The window rolled down to reveal his ex-girlfriend, Jessica Morgan. She took off her sunglasses, her eyes filled with disdain. Well, if it isn't Ethan. I heard you got kicked out of your house and are working as a food delivery driver now? What are you delivering to a high-end place like this? Humph, the security here doesn't let beggars in. The moment Ethan's family had run into trouble, Jessica had dumped him at lightning speed and thrown herself into the arms of a rich heir. Looking at her now, Ethan wasn't angry at all. In fact, he smiled. His spending mission needed an audience, after all. That's right, I'm here to beg, Ethan said, adjusting his cuffs with a brilliant smile. But I'm not begging for food today. I'm begging for the entire mall. Just then, the car door opened, and Jessica got out, arm in arm with a man in a flashy Versace shirt. The man's beady eyes scanned Ethan from head to toe with a mocking expression. Jess, is this your food delivery ex-boyfriend? He's a pretty boy, too bad he's a broke loser. The air conditioning here probably costs by the minute. Can you even afford 10 minutes of it with one delivery? Jessica clung to the man's arm, laughing uncontrollably. Ethan, let me introduce you. This is my new man, Kevin Baker. His family is in the construction business, worth hundreds of millions. She deliberately emphasized hundreds of millions, looking at Ethan with a provocative stare, as if expecting to see inferiority, anger, or shame on his face. However, she was disappointed. Ethan just stood there calmly, his gaze so indifferent it was as if he were looking at 2 clumps of air. Move, Ethan said flatly as he stepped forward. Humph, I give you an inch and you take a mile, huh? Enraged by Ethan's dismissal, Kevin stepped in front of him, reaching out to shove his shoulder. Just as Kevin's hand was about to touch him, a faint golden light flashed in the depths of Ethan's eyes, and Kevin's information appeared. Target, Kevin Baker identity. New money air, all bark and no bite current equipment. Versace shirt authentic. Richard Mille RM011 watch high quality fake. Chinese movement. Gucci belt authentic financial status. Credit cards maxed out. Robbing Peter to pay Paul. Rented the Ferrari to impress Jessica. Daily rental fee is overdue. After reading this, the corner of Ethan's mouth curved into a playful smirk. He leaned closer to Kevin, his voice low but just loud enough for a few passers-by to hear. What a shame. The carbon fiber case on a real Richard Mille has a random pattern, but yours looks a bit too uniform, don't you think? Also, the date window on the genuine article jumps instantly. It's 1:59 now. Why don't we wait and see if your watch can make the jump at 2 o'clock sharp? Kevin's face changed instantly. The watch was indeed a $3,000 replica he'd bought specifically to deceive gold diggers like Jessica. He never imagined a food delivery driver could see through it at a glance. You're full of it. This is a real watch. What the hell do you know? Kevin instinctively covered his wrist, shouting with false bravado. Jess, ignore this lunatic. Let's go. I'll buy you a bag at Hermes. With that, he grabbed a bewildered Jessica and tried to rush into the mall, clearly wanting to escape. Perfect. I need to buy a few things inside too. Let's go together, Ethan said, following leisurely behind them. Ha ha ha. This is the pinnacle. If you can afford a single pair of socks in here, I'll eat them on the spot. Remember you said that, Ethan replied as he walked through the revolving doors into the cool, air-conditioned lobby of the mall. The ground floor of the Pinnacle housed the world's most exclusive luxury brands, the air thick with the scent of expensive perfume. "Welcome to Patek Philippe," a greeter at the entrance said with a bow. But when she saw Kevin and Jessica walk in right after, her eyes visibly brightened and her smile grew wider. "Sir, madam, welcome." To regain his lost face, Kevin deliberately said in a loud voice, "Bring out the most expensive watch in your store. I want to pick one for my girlfriend." He then shot a provocative glance at Ethan. "What?" The delivery boy came in to freeload on the AC. "Be careful not to break the glass counters. You couldn't afford to pay for them even if we sold you." Several sales associates in the store shrewdly gathered around Kevin, leaving Ethan ignored off to the side. Only a young girl, a recent graduate with an intern badge, hesitantly approached Ethan and offered him a glass of water. "Hello, sir. Is there anything I can help you with? It's okay if you're just looking." The girl's eyes were clear, showing no disdain for Ethan's attire. "I'm not looking," Ethan said calmly after taking a sip of water. "Did you hear that? He's not looking. I told you he was just here for the AC. Where's security? Why are they letting just anyone in?" Jessica sneered loudly upon hearing him. A senior saleswoman walked over, her tone harsh. "Sir, if you are not making a purchase, please do not take up our service resources. There is a waiting area over there." Ethan ignored the saleswoman and instead looked at the young intern, giving her a slight smile. He then pointed to the Celestial watch in the center of the counter and swept his hand across the entire row of Nautilus models next to it. "This Celestial and this entire row. I'll take them all." Silence. The entire store fell deathly quiet. "Haha, Jess, did you hear him? He said he'll take them all. That's got to be over $20 million, right? Has this kid fried his brain delivering food?" "Ha ha ha." Kevin burst into exaggerated, wild laughter. "Sir, please do not joke around. This is Patek Philippe, not a flea market. If you continue with this nonsense, I will have to call security." The senior saleswoman's face darkened instantly, convinced Ethan was just causing trouble. "Sir, that Celestial 6102P costs $2.8 million, and it requires a VIP status and a background check." The intern stammered, terrified. A status check. From the pocket of his cheap jeans, Ethan pulled out a black card and placed it gently on the glass counter with a soft click. "Run the card. The pin is 6/8. If it doesn't go through, I'll eat this counter." Ethan's voice wasn't loud, but it carried an undeniable authority. The intern took the card with a trembling hand and looked pleadingly at the store manager. The manager was a worldly middle-aged man who had been observing Ethan the whole time. The moment he saw that black card, his pupils contracted to pinpricks. Was that the legendary Centurion black card? No, that wasn't right. The material was even more advanced. This was the Apex Dragon card, one of only 10 in the entire world. "Quick, run it." "No, bring the POS machine over here. I'll do it myself." "Keep pretending. Who do you think you're fooling with a barbershop loyalty card? Let's see what you can get out of that." "Haha." Kevin was still laughing. "Transaction approved." The sound of the POS machine printing the receipt was like a divine judgment. The manager stared at the dizzying string of zeros on the slip and nearly fell to his knees. "Honored sir, the transaction for $28,500,000 is complete. We will have these watches packaged for you immediately. Shall we have them delivered to your residence or?" "No need." The manager held the black card with both hands, bowing at a 90-degree angle, his posture utterly humble. Ethan casually strapped the $2.8 million Celestial watch onto his wrist and gave it a little shake. "Just put the rest in a bag. I'll carry them out." A bag?" The manager was stunned. Tens of millions of dollars worth of watches in a bag? Kevin and Jessica were completely petrified. How was this possible? Wasn't Ethan's family bankrupt? Wasn't he kicked out of his home? He didn't even blink when he swiped that card. Kevin felt a burning sting on his face, as if he'd been brutally slapped. Just moments ago, he was showing off a fake $1.5 million watch, and this guy had just bought over $20 million worth of real ones like they were groceries. Jessica was even more dumbfounded, staring at the dazzling Celestial watch on Ethan's wrist, her gut twisting with regret. Ethan." Jessica's voice trembled as she tried to force a seductive smile, shaking off Kevin's hand and sidling up to Ethan. "So you were just testing me. The truth is, I never forgot about you. That guy Kevin is just a persistent stalker. I don't love him at all. Get lost." Ethan didn't even glance at her, uttering only a single word. "Who was it that said they'd eat a sock?" he asked, turning to the pale-faced Kevin. Kevin stumbled back, bumping into the counter. "You, what do you want?" "My dad is." "I'm not interested in your dad." Ethan turned to leave, pausing for a moment as he passed the senior saleswoman who had looked down on him. "Yes, sir. The commission for this sale, give it all to her," Ethan said, pointing to the intern. "As for you, I don't want to see you here the next time I visit." "Understood. I'll fire her immediately." "Young lady, what are you waiting for? Thank the gentleman. Your commission today is enough to buy a house in Chicago." Leaving Patek Philippe, Ethan glanced at his system panel. Amount spent, $28.50 million remaining quota. $71.50 million time remaining. 1 hour 20 minutes. He walked directly into the Armani flagship store next door. Sir, would you like me to show you anything? Everything on this floor, new season, size large. Give me 3 of each. Those limited edition crocodile suitcases from Gucci next door, get them to pack the clothes in. And 100 full sets of La Mer, send them to the guys at the delivery station to use as hand lotion. For the next hour, the entire Pinnacle Mall was thrown into unprecedented chaos. A mysterious tycoon in a simple t-shirt was on a rampage, clearing out every luxury store in his path. He never looked at the prices, uttering only 2 phrases: charge it, bag it. The mall's general manager personally followed him with 20 security guards, whose sole job was to carry his purchases. Kevin and Jessica trailed behind like 2 forgotten clowns, completely dazed. Where in the world did he get that money? Jessica's nails dug into her palms, her eyes red with envy. It must be dirty money. I'm going to report him. Dear valued customers, the Pinnacle will be closing half an hour early today, as a distinguished guest has booked the entire rooftop garden restaurant and invited the world-renowned pianist Lang Lang for a private performance. The announcement caused an uproar throughout the mall. Ethan stood at the top of the second-floor escalator, a slight smile on his face. This was another spending item arranged by the system. The service fee alone was $5 million. Ding! Mission complete. Current amount spent, $100.50 million. Congratulations to the host for completing the first splurge achievement. Rewards issued, 10x cashback critical hit, $1 billion in cash has been deposited into your account. 51% ownership of the Pinnacle Mall transfer contract is now in effect.
Charme plus 10, physique plus 10.
Ethan paused for a second. The Pinnacle was his now? The mall's general manager received a phone call and immediately dropped to his knees in front of Ethan. Boss, I didn't realize you were here. Please forgive my poor reception. I am Arthur Bell, the general manager of the Pinnacle. You have acquired 51% of the group's shares. From this moment on, you are in charge here. This act of kneeling stunned everyone around. Kevin was so scared he fell right on his butt. Ethan looked at the kneeling Arthur Bell. Get up. Since I'm the boss, I'll issue my first order now. He pointed towards Kevin and Jessica. These two are ruining my shopping mood. Throw them out. From now on, they are banned from setting foot in any property owned by the Pinnacle. Also, that guy's fake watch is an eyesore. Help him take it off. Stop. Let go of me. No, Ethan, it's me, Jess. I'm the one you love most. My dad won't let you get away with this. You just wait. You just wait. 20 security guards descended like a pack of wolves. Kevin was still shouting threats when he was slammed to the ground, his fake watch forcibly ripped off and crushed under a boot. His screams faded into the distance. Ethan stood at the top of the escalator, looking down upon his new commercial empire. His phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello, is this Mr. Ethan? This is Chloe Sterling. I heard you just bought the Pinnacle. I'm in the coffee shop downstairs right now. Chloe? So she'd been here all along. Great. I'm hungry too. I'm not in the mood for coffee though. I'm thinking of getting some spicy hot pot. Would you care to join me, Ms. Sterling? Of course. As long as you're willing to see me, I'll eat anything. Ethan hung up the phone with a brilliant smile. It seemed the game was about to get much more interesting. The Chicago night was like a pool of thick ink, pierced by the bizarre and garish lights of the old town's bustling Red Star Street. A Rolls-Royce Phantom with a custom L88888 license plate, completely out of place in this rundown neighborhood, carefully navigated the potholed, water-filled street and stopped in front of Fatty's Spicy Hot Pot. The automatic door opened, and Chloe stepped out. Sitting on a red plastic stool on the sidewalk, Ethan looked up, breaking apart a pair of disposable chopsticks. What's wrong, Ms. Sterling? Is it too dirty for you? Piled next to him were dozens of designer shopping bags from his spree at the Pinnacle. Ethan blew the dust off another plastic stool. Have a seat. The beef balls here are the best in all of Chicago. Chloe took a deep breath and sat down across from him. You have a strange sense of humor, Mr. Ethan. I would have thought a multi-billionaire who buys the Pinnacle on a whim would be more particular about his dining environment. Money is meant to make life freer, not to put you in a cage. Go ahead and order, Ms. Sterling. You said it was your treat, so don't hold back just because it's cheap. Chloe looked at the menu, with prices like meatballs $2 and kelp $1. Her feelings complicated. She had investigated Ethan. 24 hours ago, he was a delivery driver struggling in the rain for a few bucks. Now, he sat across from her with an aura so profound that even she, a seasoned business veteran, couldn't read him. I'll just have a little of everything, Chloe said, putting down the menu. Mr. Ethan, let's talk business. About you saving candy and your acquisition of the Pinnacle. Show no business during meals. It's bad for digestion. Ma'am, 2 large bowls, mild spice, extra vinegar. You got it. Ethan, you brought your girlfriend today? She's beautiful. She looks a little thin, needs to eat more. This one's on the house. Chloe's face instantly turned beet red, and she waved her hands frantically. No, it's not like that. I'm his creditor. Ethan chuckled and picked up the vinegar bottle, pouring a generous amount into Chloe's bowl. Try it. The vinegar is the soul of this dish. Thrown off by Ethan's interruption, Chloe's tense, negotiation-ready posture deflated. She hesitated for a moment before picking up a piece of bok choy and putting it in her mouth. The spicy, scalding, and sour flavors were so intense they made her cough, bringing tears to her eyes. Eat slowly. No one's going to steal it from you, Ethan said, handing her a napkin. Chloe took it and dabbed her mouth, a little flustered. In that moment, the impenetrable armor she usually wore seemed to crack, revealing a sliver of genuine human vulnerability. Chloe suddenly spoke, her voice a little softer. Ethan, thank you. Not just for saving candy, but also, actually, the Pinnacle had been blocking our company's ad space renewal. If you hadn't acquired it, the Sterling Corporation's flagship product launch next month might have been a disaster. As Ethan ate his beef balls, he activated his golden eyes. Streams of red data flashed above her head. Target, Chloe Sterling identity. President of Sterling Corporation current status. Extremely anxious. At breaking point core crisis 1. Broken capital chain. Trapped and exploited by rival Apex Capital. Facing an $800 million funding gap. Core crisis 2. Internal trader. Design director Peter Wallace bribed by Apex Capital. Plans to leak core bidding price at tomorrow morning's meeting. Crisis 3. Signed a gamble agreement with the family's board of elders. If unable to turn a profit this quarter, will be stripped of CEO position and forced into a marriage alliance with the heir of Apex Capital. Time until collapse. 12 hours. Ethan's chewing slowed. This was bad. Really bad. She wasn't a powerful CEO. She was a lamb being led to the slaughter. He put down his chopsticks and looked at her with a half smile. Forgive me for being blunt, but I doubt the venue for your product launch is your biggest worry right now. Is it? From what I can tell, your company's accounts probably don't even have enough to cover the rental fee for the Pinnacle. Chloe's face went pale, and she stared intently at Ethan. How do you know that? The company's financial status is top secret. Not even the vice presidents know. Are you a corporate spy? I'm your benefactor, not a spy. Ethan took out a napkin, casually took her hand, and wiped a grease stain from the back of it. Her fingers were long and warm, and the moment they touched Chloe's cool skin, she flinched as if shocked but didn't pull her hand away. And not only do I know you're broke, I also know the reason you're in this mess is because you have a ghost in your midst. A ghost. Chloe's face turned ashen. Just then, Chloe's phone began to vibrate wildly. The caller ID read, Design Director Peter Wallace. Chloe glanced at Ethan, who made a go-ahead gesture. She answered the call. Hello, Peter. How are the preparations for tomorrow's bid proposal coming along? An anxious and guilty-sounding voice came from the other end. Ms. Sterling, something terrible has happened. Our servers were just hacked. What? All the original design drafts and data for the Oasis project have been locked and destroyed. The backup hard drive is corrupted too. Chloe shot to her feet so abruptly that she knocked over the plastic stool behind her. How is that possible? Our firewall is top of the line, and the backup drive is in your safe. How could it be corrupted? I don't know. Ms. Sterling, the bidding presentation is at 9 a.m. tomorrow. There's no way we can redo everything in time. It seems like Apex Capital already has their proposal ready. We're finished. The phone slipped from Chloe's hand and clattered to the ground. She looked as if her spine had been removed, slumping down to sit, forgetting the stool was overturned. Just as she was about to fall onto the greasy pavement, Ethan caught her with one hand. With the other, he calmly picked up the phone and spoke to Peter Wallace, who was still on the line. Nice acting. The Academy owes you an Oscar. The person on the other end was clearly stunned. Who is this? Where's Ms. Sterling? Ethan sneered into the receiver. Who I am doesn't matter. What matters, Peter, is that you'd better pray that $20 million bonus from Apex Capital is enough to buy you a decent wheelchair. With that, Ethan hung up and tossed the phone back on the table. Chloe leaned against him, trembling, her eyes vacant. In this moment, she was no longer the Ice Queen CEO, but a woman at the absolute peak of helplessness. It's all over. That was our last chance to turn things around. Without the design drafts, we'll default tomorrow. I'll have to pay $300 million in damages. The family will eat me alive. What's there to panic about? Ethan's voice, calm and steady, cut through the noise of the night market with a reassuring magic. He helped Chloe stand straight, placed his hands on her shoulders, and forced her to look into his eyes. Designs can be redrawn, money can be re-earned. As long as you're not dead, the game isn't over. Redraw them? There's no time. Chloe's eyes were red, tears welling up. We have less than 10 hours. That was the culmination of 3 months of work by dozens of designers. Who says there's no time? Ethan released her, turned, and picked up the pile of designer bags, his eyes gleaming with the excitement of a hunter spotting its prey. Let's go. Go where? To your office. Since that Peter Wallace says the data is destroyed, I'll show him what a miracle looks like. Tonight, we're gonna play a little game of ghost hunting. Half an hour later, in the Sterling Corporation Tower in downtown Chicago, the entire building was lit up and the design department was in utter chaos. Dozens of designers were staring at black computer screens, pulling their hair out. Some were crying, others were cursing. Director Peter Wallace stood in the middle, pretending to direct the IT staff with repairs, but the corner of his eye kept darting to his watch, a faint, smug smile hidden on his lips. If he could just stall through the night, Chloe would fall tomorrow, and he could take his money and become a vice president at Apex Capital. Just then, a commotion came from the entrance. Ms. Sterling is here. Peter immediately put on a pained expression and rushed over. Ms. Sterling, you're finally here. I've failed you. However, he didn't see the broken, desperate Chloe he expected. Instead, she strode in, and though her eyes were still a bit red, her presence was even more formidable than usual. And beside her was a young man in an Armani suit, carrying a takeout bag of spicy hot pot. Ms. Sterling, who is this? Peter asked, taken aback. I'm the delivery guy, Ethan said, casually placing the bag of hot pot on the conference table before walking straight towards Peter. Ethan's stare made Peter's skin crawl. This, Ms. Sterling, at a time like this, you brought an outsider here to cause trouble. Director Wallace, your acting is a little over the top. Ethan pointed to a blacked-out computer. You said the servers were hacked and all the data was destroyed? Of course, Peter said, forcing himself to sound confident. Is that so? Ethan turned, walked to a main control terminal, and his fingers flew across the keyboard. Host is using God-level hacking skill permanent infiltrating firewall, tracing data flow, restoring low-level code. The black screen, previously filled with gibberish, suddenly began to flicker wildly with streams of green code, moving at a blinding speed. The lead IT technician stared in disbelief. What kind of typing speed is that? He's writing a reverse trace program. In less than a minute, tap. Ethan hit the enter key. The massive dark screen instantly lit up, but it didn't show design files. Instead, it displayed a security camera playback and a detailed screenshot of a chat log. The footage showed Peter, just half an hour earlier, plugging a USB drive into the main server and sending a message to a contact labeled, Mr. Vanderbilt, Apex. Data deleted. That stupid woman Chloe is finished. The room fell completely silent. The eyes of every designer turned on Peter like daggers. His face turned a deep shade of purple. This is fake. It's a setup. Ms. Sterling, you can't believe a delivery boy. Chloe stared at the screen, her heart twisting in pain. Security. Detain this backstabbing traitor and call the police immediately. Yes, ma'am. The security guards, who had been holding back their anger, rushed forward. You dare arrest me, Chloe? Without my design team, you're still dead tomorrow. Ha ha ha. Let's see how you turn this around now. Peter was still laughing hysterically as he was dragged away. It was true. Catching the traitor was satisfying, but the design files were really gone. A desperate silence once again fell over the office. The lead technician timidly asked, Master, since you could recover the security footage, can you recover the design files too? He physically wiped them. They can't be recovered, Ethan said, shaking his head. However, he continued, changing the subject as he sat down at the head of the conference table and opened his box of hot pot. That garbage design was better off destroyed anyway. To enter a bid with something like that would have been an embarrassment. What did you say? The assistant design director snapped, furious. That was 3 months of our hard work. Ethan ignored the angry crowd and looked at Chloe. Do you have a stylus? And a tablet? Chloe paused, then instinctively handed him her tablet and stylus. What are you going to do? Ethan took the stylus and twirled it skillfully in his hand. At that moment, the system store opened in his mind, detecting Host's need for a God-level save. Recommended item, the Compendium of Future Top-Tier Advertising Creatives 2035 edition. Countless colors, lines, and compositions far beyond this era flooded into Ethan's vision, a visual shock from the future. Since you all think that was your masterpiece, Ethan said calmly as he began to draw, then tonight, I'll teach you what real art is. For the next hour, everyone in the Sterling Corporation's design department experienced a complete shattering and rebuilding of their worldview. The man they had dismissed as a delivery boy was like a human AI printer. His hand moved so fast it left after images, and one after another, exquisitely beautiful and mind-blowingly creative concept images appeared on the screen. The lighting, the perspective. This is a perfect fusion of cyberpunk and classic American style. This light rendering, my God, he's a genius. This is a masterpiece. The assistant who had just been questioning Ethan was now practically kneeling beside him, offering him water. When the final key visual was complete, Ethan tossed the stylus aside and rubbed his wrist. On the screen was a poster titled Rebirth. The image depicted a mechanical rose blooming in a downpour amidst ruins. The theme perfectly mirrored Ethan's own journey, as well as Chloe's desperate situation. Chloe stared at the image, silent tears streaming down her face. Ethan, she turned her head to look at the man who was now quietly eating his cold hot pot. In that instant, her psychological defenses completely crumbled. Don't get emotional just yet, Ethan said, swallowing a meatball. The designs are done. Now it's time to close the net. At tomorrow morning's bidding presentation, I'm going to make Apex Capital spit out everything they swallowed, with interest. He stood up, walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, and looked out at the Chicago skyline. Ms. Sterling, are you brave enough to play a bigger game with me? Chloe walked to his side, standing shoulder to shoulder with him, the confusion in her eyes replaced by a determined light. Why wouldn't I be? Even if we lose, the worst that can happen is I go deliver food with you. Ethan smiled. Deliver food? I'm afraid that won't work. He turned his head. After all, the passenger seat is reserved for the boss's wife. The Chicago International Convention Center. Today was the final bidding day for the City of the Future Commercial Complex, a landmark project in Chicago's new district. It was a $10 billion prize, and the winner would determine who would dominate Chicago's business landscape for the next decade. A ridiculously flashy, neon green Lamborghini roared up and parked aggressively in a VIP spot, even crossing the line. The scissor doors swung up, and out stepped a young man in a white suit with slicked-back hair, William Vanderbilt, the heir to Apex Capital. Trailing behind him was a fawning Peter Wallace, the former design director who had just been bailed out last night. Mr. Vanderbilt, rest assured, Chloe Sterling is completely finished, Peter said, his face still swollen and his eyes sporting dark circles, yet gleaming with excitement. I deleted the data myself and even wiped the hard drive with a powerful magnet. Unless a god intervenes, she's showing up today with nothing but a blank sheet of paper to embarrass herself. Well done. Once the Sterling family goes bankrupt, that arrogant woman Chloe will be mine to do with as I please. Just as he spoke, a black Audi A6 pulled in slowly. It was Chloe's car, and compared to the surrounding supercars, it looked understated, almost shabby. William whistled and swaggered over with Peter to block the car door. Well, if it isn't the beautiful Ms. Sterling? The door opened, and Chloe stepped out. After a night of torment and renewal, she looked remarkably composed today, her charming eyes free of yesterday's anxiety. From the driver's seat behind her, a young man emerged. It was Ethan. To match Chloe's professional look, he had changed into a dark gray business casual outfit. He wore no tie, yet he exuded an air of effortless, relaxed elegance. In his hand, he carried a silver metal briefcase. Mr. Vanderbilt, a good dog doesn't block the path, Chloe said coldly. Still talking tough when you're at death's door? Chloe, I heard your design department was in chaos last night, that you even fried your servers. What, are you here today to announce your withdrawal and beg me to acquire your company? He greedily scanned her figure and lowered his voice. Actually, if you come to my room tonight, I might be willing to raise the acquisition price. Before Chloe could respond, a hand suddenly waved in front of William's face as if shooing away a fly. Hey, you there. Your breath stinks. You're bothering my boss. Who the hell are you? Is this your place to speak? You're just a driver. Mr. Vanderbilt, that's the delivery boy from last night. He's the one who jinxed us and ruined everything. Ha ha ha. A delivery boy? William laughed, doubling over. Chloe, have you lost your mind? Bringing a delivery boy to a $10 billion project bid? Ha ha ha. What's your plan? Bribe the judges with spicy hot pot. Ethan activated his golden eyes. Target, William Vanderbilt status. Extremely confident. Stage 2 kidney deficiency items carried. Bidding price document hidden in inner pocket. A bottle of small blue pills secret. Has bribed the head judge, Professor Miles, with the agreed-upon signal being a nose touch. Transaction records are on his encrypted phone. Bribing a judge? Interesting. Mr. Vanderbilt, is it? Ethan began. Were those enhancement pills you took last night expired? You're looking a little pale. I'm afraid you might run into some bad luck today. Also, an old academic like Professor Miles has a big appetite. Be careful that little consulting fee of yours isn't enough to satisfy him. William's smile froze on his face, his pupils constricting. How did this kid know about the pills? More importantly, how did he know about Professor Miles? Before he could react, Ethan had taken Chloe's arm and was walking straight towards the elevators, bypassing them as if they were a pile of trash. Ethan, what did you just say to him? Why did he look so pale? Nothing much, just read his fortune. Ms. Sterling, just focus on your presentation later. Leave the rest to me. The atmosphere in the bidding hall was tense. 5 judges sat at the main table, the bald-headed man in the center being the industry authority, Professor Miles. The audience was filled with Chicago's business elite, and the back rows were packed with media, their cameras like an arsenal of weapons. Next, we invite Apex Capital to present their proposal. As the host finished speaking, William and Peter walked onto the stage. Although he had been rattled by Ethan earlier, now on his home turf, William regained his arrogant demeanor. Honorable judges, esteemed guests, the proposal we at Apex Capital have brought you today is Urban Oasis. We will create a sky garden that integrates ecology, environmental protection, and technology. As the slide changed, a murmur went through the audience. That's our original proposal. Chloe gripped the hem of her dress, her knuckles turning white. That was right. Although Peter had deleted the Sterling Corporation's original files, he had given a copy to William. The current urban oasis was a pixel-for-pixel copy of the Sterling Corporation's previous design, with only the name changed. Shameless. Chloe gritted her teeth. That double helix sky bridge is our original patented design, and the photosynthetic glass curtain wall is our exclusive concept. Original. Ethan, sitting in the audience, sneered and took out his phone. System command. Infiltrate convention hall projection system. Connection successful. If you're going to play the plagiarism game, I'll make sure everyone knows who you copied from. On stage, Peter was still boasting smugly. This is the culmination of 6 months of hard work from our team, absolutely one of a kind. Just then, the large screen flickered and changed to a massive split-screen comparison. On the left was the Urban Oasis presentation, and on the right was a video of a Sterling Corporation internal meeting from 3 months ago. The hall fell silent for a moment, then erupted in an uproar. What the hell? Isn't that the Sterling Corporation's old proposal? Even the color scheme is the same. Did they just steal it outright? A big company like Apex Capital is pulling this kind of stunt. On stage, Peter looked like a strangled duck, his voice cut off mid-sentence. He stared at the screen in terror, cold sweat instantly drenching his back. What's going on? Who changed the screen? Turn it off. Turn it off now. William roared at the tech crew. Mr. Vanderbilt, I didn't do anything. The computer is unresponsive. It seems to be infected with a virus. Before they could scramble to pull the plug, a line of blood-red text suddenly appeared on the screen. An epitaph for thieves. Originality isn't dead because of you. It's dead because you can only pick up trash. Then the screen went black, and everything returned to normal. Ethan sat in the audience, quietly putting his phone away, his work done. He then unwrapped a mint Chloe had brought for him. Was that a technical difficulty? Chloe asked, staring at the scene in disbelief, the frustration in her heart completely gone. No, Ethan said, crunching the mint. That was just the warm-up. Look at Professor Miles. He looks sick. Indeed, Professor Miles was squirming in his seat at the judge's table. He had been paid to give Apex a high score, but now, with irrefutable evidence of plagiarism presented in front of hundreds of people, his reputation would be ruined if he tried to defend them. Professor Miles reluctantly picked up the microphone. Ahem, Apex Capital's proposal has serious issues and will be put on hold for now. Next up, the Sterling Corporation. William slunk off the stage, hissing at Ethan as he passed. You little punk, you did this, didn't you? You just wait. Once we're out of this building, I'll have you lying dead in the street. Is that how you ask for favors? Remember to bring some tissues later. I'm worried you'll cry too hard. Chloe took a deep breath and stood up. All eyes in the hall were on her, a mix of pity, amusement, and skepticism. After the plagiarism fiasco, everyone was curious to see what the Sterling Corporation would present. Chloe walked to the stage without a USB drive or any paper documents. She simply stood quietly at the podium, the spotlight shining on her, looking like a queen about to be crowned. Everyone, Chloe's voice was cool and firm. You just saw the so-called Urban Oasis. That's correct. It was a rejected draft from the Sterling Corporation. Why was it rejected? Because it was too outdated. The hall buzzed with conversation. While the proposal was plagiarized, its quality was still considered top tier in the industry. To not waste everyone's time, Assistant Ethan, please begin. Ethan nodded and opened the silver metal briefcase. But he didn't take out any documents. Instead, he produced a black, fist-sized crystal. System store purchase. Portable holographic projector 2035 edition. Price, $5 million. Ethan placed the crystal in the center of the stage. What is that thing? The judges asked, craning their necks. The next second, a beam of ethereal blue light shot up, instantly expanding to envelop the entire convention hall. The brightly lit hall instantly went dark, replaced by a massive, realistic virtual city floating in the air. This was no static PowerPoint, no flat rendering. Everyone felt as if they had been transported through time and space into a futuristic, cyberpunk-style metropolis. Giant neon signs flickered overhead, and they could even see the expressions on the faces of virtual pedestrians walking the streets. And at the very center of it all, a building shaped like a blooming mechanical lotus rotated slowly. This was the Sterling Corporation's new proposal, the Lotus of Rebirth. My God, what is this technology? Glasses-free 3D? No, this is a hologram. What am I seeing? Is this a Hollywood movie set? This design is insane. Compared to this, that Urban Oasis looks like a backwoods outhouse. The hall erupted. Reporters frantically snapped pictures, the flashes of their cameras lighting up the scene like daylight. Chloe stood within the giant virtual lotus, looking like a fairy. She reached out and swiped through the virtual interface, and the entire building instantly deconstructed and reassembled, showcasing the breathtaking commercial flow within. We don't define the future, we create it. There was no suspense. This was a slaughter, a higher dimensional being crushing a lower one. Professor Miles, who had been looking for faults, now sat with his mouth agape, his dentures nearly falling out. In the face of such a miracle, if he dared to say a single word of dissent, he would likely be torn apart by the frenzied crowd. I give it a perfect score. This is a work of art. It's a masterpiece that will define an era, one judge exclaimed, standing up to applaud. The applause that followed was thunderous and unending. In the audience, William's face was ashen as he slumped in his chair. He knew it was over. No matter how much money or how many connections he had, they were all a joke in the face of this absolute crushing display of power. Chloe looked at the ecstatic crowd, her eyes slightly red. She glanced at Ethan, who was toying with the $5 million crystal, and winked, mouthing the words, "The boss's wife is amazing." The bidding concluded, and the Sterling Corporation won the City of the Future project with an absolute advantage. As soon as the news broke, Sterling's stock, which had been plummeting, shot up instantly, hitting its daily limit and staying there. "Ms. Sterling, was that holographic technology developed by your company?" "Ms. Sterling, who was the lead designer for that proposal? Could you introduce us?" Chloe struggled through the crowd, looking around. She was searching for Ethan. However, the man most responsible for her victory was nowhere to be found. In an alley behind the convention center, Ethan was leaning against a wall, smoking a cigarette. Kneeling before him were two men, a bruised and swollen Peter Wallace, and a trembling William Vanderbilt. Surrounding them were a dozen burly men in black suits and sunglasses, led by none other than Blade, the lone shark from last night, who was now the captain of Ethan's security team. "Mr. Ethan, Mr. Ethan, I was wrong. I was blind to your greatness." William had lost all of his earlier arrogance. Staring at the thick steel pipe in Blade's hand, he was so scared he wet his pants. "Please, spare me. I'm the only heir to the Vanderbilt family. I'll give you any amount of money you want." "Heh?" Ethan said, blowing a smoke ring and crouching down. "Money? Do you think I'm short on money?" He chuckled, took out a check, wrote down a number, and slapped it on William's face. "This is for $10 million. As compensation for the emotional distress you caused me with that delivery boy comment. Of course, you're paying me, not the other way around." William was stunned. "I'm paying? That's right. I don't need the money, but I hate it when people owe me." "Blade, teach Mr. Vanderbilt how to write an IOU. As for the interest, let's use the same rate he gets on his gambling debts in Vegas." "You got it, Mr. Ethan. Don't you worry. I'm an expert at this," Blade said, advancing with a sinister grin. Ethan stood up and walked away, ignoring the screams behind him. He had just stepped out of the alley when his phone rang. "Ethan, where are you? The celebration party is about to start. You're the guest of honor. I won't start without you." "Skip the party. I'm not a fan of those events." Ethan looked at the massive Sterling Corporation ad scrolling across a distant skyscraper. "Ms. Sterling, don't forget our agreement. Save the passenger seat for me." Chloe was silent for 2 seconds on the other end of the line. "Ethan, I don't want the passenger seat. I want you to be the driver for the rest of our lives. Would you be willing?" It was practically a confession of love. Ethan was taken aback for a moment before a piercing red alert blared in his mind. "Warning, warning. Host's excessive use of future technology has attracted the attention of the Shadow World Organization. S-Class crisis imminent. The world's top assassin guild, the Black Mambas, has accepted a contract. Target, Ethan Bounty. $100 million client. The Vanderbilt family paid by William Vanderbilt. First wave of assassins will arrive in 30 minutes. The old dogs of the Vanderbilt family. I deal with the son, and now the father comes out to play." He spoke into the phone to Chloe. "Chloe, cancel the party. Go home immediately, lock all the doors and windows, and have Blade station all his men around your mansion. Don't come out no matter what you hear." "What's wrong?" "Ethan, don't scare me." "It's nothing," Ethan said, looking up at a black helicopter circling in the distant sky. "Just some trash that needs to be taken out. This time, I'm going to let the entire Chicago underworld know who the real king is." In the old, abandoned industrial district, the air felt as heavy as lead. The black helicopter didn't open fire immediately. Instead, it circled like a vulture for a few moments before hovering over the roof of a derelict, unfinished building a kilometer away. Ethan stood at an empty intersection, the cigarette between his fingers burned down to the filter. "Come on out," he said, flicking the butt away. "For a world-class assassin organization, you spend a lot of time hiding in the shadows like rats." The surroundings were deathly silent. Suddenly, a faint whistling sound cut through the air, like the sigh of the Grim Reaper. A normal person would have had their skull blown open by the special armor-piercing round. But Ethan was no normal person. In his golden eyes vision, the bullet, traveling at 3 times the speed of sound, was crawling towards him with a long thermal trail, as slow as a snail. Ethan didn't even move his feet. He simply tilted his head, a movement so slight it was almost imperceptible. The bullet grazed the tips of his hair and slammed into the concrete pillar behind him, blasting out a bowl-sized crater. Is that all you've got? Ethan looked up, his gaze piercing through 500 meters of distance to lock onto the sniper hiding behind a billboard. The Black Mambas are nothing special, after all. 500 meters away, on the roof of the abandoned building, the sniper codenamed Viper stared through his night vision scope at the man who was still standing in the same spot, now giving him the middle finger. Cold sweat instantly soaked through his combat gear. Report to Captain, Target 1 dodged. I repeat, he dodged. That was an M200 sniper rifle from 500 meters. How is that possible? Shut up. Bravo and Charlie teams. Move in. Close quarters combat. Don't give him a chance to breathe. Roger that. Following the order, 12 shadowy figures emerged from the darkness around the industrial district. They were clad in full exoskeletal combat armor, wielding suppressed submachine guns and high-frequency vibroblades. Moving in perfect unison like a silent wolf pack, they closed in on Ethan from all sides. Ethan stood at the center of the encirclement, not a trace of fear on his face, only a hint of bloodthirsty excitement. System, I'd like to buy something. Detecting host in S-Class combat environment. Smart recommendations activated. 1. Absolute defense shield one-time use. Price, $50 million. Can withstand all attacks except a nuclear blast for 10 minutes. 2. Terminator T, 800 experience card 1 hour. Price, $100 million. 3. BAJI Quan Grandmaster level. Permanent. Price, $200 million. 4. Telekinesis beginner. Price, $500 million. I'll take Baji Quan, $200 million deducted. Infusing Grandmaster level BAJI Quan memory. Infusion complete. A terrifying heat surged through Ethan's body. His bones crackled like popping corn, and his lean muscles instantly tensed, every fiber seemingly compressed with enough power to shatter mountains. At that moment, the two assassins in the lead reached him, their gleaming vibroblades striking from the left and right, aimed at his throat and heart. A cold voice whispered in their ears, "Too slow, Baji Quan, Iron Mountain Strike." Ethan didn't even throw a punch. He just lowered his shoulder slightly and slammed into the assassin on his left. With a sickening thud, the assassin, protected by Kevlar and an exoskeleton, was sent flying like a cannonball, as if hit head-on by a high-speed train. He crashed straight through a nearby brick wall. The remaining 10 assassins skidded to a halt, their eyes wide with horror. Open fire! Open fire! Don't let him get close! Their captain, Cobra, roared into his comms. Rat-tat-tat-tat. Muzzles flashed, and a dense storm of bullets rained down on Ethan. But he was already moving. Empowered by Baji Quan, his movements were like a phantom flash of lightning, weaving through the hail of bullets. With his golden eyes pushed to their limit, the trajectory of every single bullet was a clearly visible line in his vision. For the bullets he couldn't dodge, he simply reached out. Ethan's fingers moved like lightning, and he actually caught a bullet in midair. Monster! He's a monster! Now it's my turn. Ethan dropped the bullet and his body erupted into motion. The next 3 minutes were a one-sided slaughter. Ethan's figure was like the Grim Reaper's scythe, leaving a trail of fallen bodies in his wake. He unleashed the full, brutal power of Baji Quan. Heart-crushing elbows, three-point strikes, heaven-shattering uppercuts. Every move was simple and direct, yet contained devastating force. The exoskeletons were as fragile as paper before him. One assassin tried to use a rocket launcher, but before he could pull the trigger, Ethan kicked his arm, shattering it. The rocket launcher fell to the ground and exploded, sending the assassin himself sky-high. When the last assassin was sent flying by a kick, the street fell silent once more. Ethan stood in the center of the carnage, his Armani suit unstained by a single drop of blood. Only his deep eyes still burned with a fading golden fire. He looked up towards the top of the abandoned building. There was still one big fish left. On the rooftop, Cobra's hands were shaking. He had been a mercenary for 20 years, had assassinated warlords in the Philippines and blown up oil fields in the Middle East. He had seen it all, but he had never even heard of someone who could single-handedly wipe out a fully armed elite squad in 3 minutes. Retreat! Retreat immediately! The intel was wrong. This isn't an S-Class mission, it's a Triple S suicide mission. Cobra screamed into his comms as he prepared to escape via zipline. Just as he turned, a voice spoke from behind him. "You've come all this way. Won't you stay for a cup of tea?" Cobra whipped out the Desert Eagle from his thigh holster and spun around, firing instantly. The gun fired, but Ethan was gone. The next second, Cobra felt a cold sensation on his wrist, followed by excruciating pain. His right hand, still holding the Desert Eagle, fell cleanly to the ground, the cut as smooth as glass. In front of him, Ethan was toying with a thin, blood-stained piece of rusty metal. It was a shard from a soda can he had picked up off the ground. In the hands of a master, anything could be a deadly weapon. Clutching his severed wrist, Cobra fell to his knees, screaming, his eyes filled with despair and terror. "Don't kill me. I'm the head of the Black Mamba's North American division. If you kill me, the Mambas will hunt you to the ends of the earth." Ethan looked down at him as if he were an ant. "Threaten me? Do you know what I hate most? when people threaten me with things I have in abundance. For example, money. Ethan took out his phone and opened an interface. It was the dark web omniscience permission the system had just unlocked. The Black Mamba's secret organization, headquarters on an island in international waters in the Pacific, assets approximately $30 billion. Current leader, codename King Cobra, is the illegitimate son of a declining European noble family. How do you know all this? That's top secret. System, purchasing Hand of God, global hacking ability upgraded. Infiltrating Black Mamba headquarters accounts, freezing all assets. Additionally, issuing a new bounty to all assassins. 3 seconds later, Cobra's special communicator began to vibrate wildly. It wasn't just his. At that exact moment, over 3,000 Black Mamba assassins across the globe received a top-priority red directive. S-Class bounty target. The entire Vanderbilt family primary targets. William Vanderbilt and his father, Cornelius Vanderbilt client. Codename God, reward. $1 billion additional clause. Whoever takes Cornelius Vanderbilt's head will become the next leader of the Black Mambas. The current leader, King Cobra, has been bought out by the Tycoon God for $50 billion. The organization is now renamed Divine Retribution. Be bought out. Cobra muttered to himself, his worldview shattering. He never dreamed that someone could just buy an entire assassin organization. What, you don't believe it? If not, you can check your bank account. As a welcoming gift, I just sent every living assassin a $1 million loyalty bonus. Cobra's phone pinged. A deposit notification, $1 million. In that instant, the way Cobra looked at Ethan changed. It was no longer fear, but fervent worship. Boss. He slammed his head on the floor, the impacts echoing loudly. This subordinate was blind. I am willing to go through hell and high water for you, boss. That old bastard Cornelius Vanderbilt. I'll go kill him right now. Your hand is gone. You're useless, and I don't keep useless people. Cobra's face turned ashen. However, Ethan's tone shifted. I have a pill here. If you take it, your hand will grow back, and your strength will triple. Beginner regeneration potion. System store price, $50 million. But this pill is also a poison. You'll need an antidote every 3 months. If you betray me, I'll take it. Cobra snatched the pill without hesitation and swallowed it. A miraculous scene unfolded. Flesh began to writhe at his severed wrist, the wound stopping its bleeding, scabbing over, and regenerating at a visible rate. A miracle. It's a miracle. Cobra wept with joy. Ethan turned and walked to the edge of the roof. Clean up the bodies here. I don't want to see any news reports about a shootout tomorrow. And inform everyone I want to play with the Vanderbilts for a while. Don't kill them off too quickly. First, cut off their funding. Then, sever their connections. Finally, I want them kneeling at the entrance of the Sterling Corporation, begging for a death that will not come. As you command. After tonight, the Vanderbilt name will be erased from the underworld. Ethan leaped from the 30-story building. In midair, he activated the anti-gravity glider he had just purchased, soaring away like a giant black bat and disappearing into the night. Half an hour later, Chloe's private mansion was brightly lit. In the living room, Chloe was curled up on the sofa, hugging a pillow. The TV was on, but she wasn't watching. Beside her, Candy was asleep, a tear still glistening at the corner of her eye. Please be okay. Chloe prayed silently, her hands clasped together. Just then, the sound of the fingerprint lock disengaging came from the front door, followed by the automated voice. Welcome home. Chloe shot up, not even bothering with her shoes, and ran barefoot to the door. The door opened. Sorry, I'm late. I passed by a night market and saw this place had good crawfish, so I grabbed some. It's the 13 spice kind. Ethan. Chloe could no longer control her emotions. She threw herself into his arms, hugging his waist tightly, her tears instantly soaking his shirt. Where did you go? Do you know how worried I was? I heard the helicopter, and I thought, silly girl, didn't I tell you? There was just some trash that needed to be cleaned up. He looked up at the night sky outside the window, where the clouds had parted to reveal a bright, clear moon. From now on, I run the nights in Chicago. No one will ever be able to hurt you again. Ethan, who are you, really? Ethan looked down and gently kissed the tears from the corners of her eyes. I'm your tycoon, and I'm your knight. Meanwhile, at the Vanderbilt mansion on the other side of Chicago, Cornelius Vanderbilt, chairman of the Vanderbilt Group, sat in his study anxiously awaiting good news. Why haven't I heard back yet? What is that useless Cobra doing? Cornelius growled, stubbing out his cigar in the ashtray. Suddenly, the study door burst open, and the butler stumbled in, his face pale with terror. Sir, it's terrible. Something awful has happened. What are you panicking about? Is the sky falling? Cornelius bellowed. The butler handed him a tablet with trembling hands. The sky, it really is falling. Look, the dark web is flooded with bounties on our family. Our stock just plummeted 90% in pre-market trading, and a dozen of the company's major shareholders just called simultaneously to say they're divesting. What? Cornelius snatched the tablet. One glance was all it took for the world to spin. and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. On the dark web's homepage was a large photo of his face, with a line of blood-red text beneath it. Global Hunt, the Vanderbilt clan, bounty $1 billion. Who did this? Cornelius roared like a dying beast. Just then, the phone in his study rang. It was an unknown number. Cornelius answered the phone with a trembling hand. A voice, distorted but still dripping with endless cold, came from the other end. Good evening, Mr. Vanderbilt. I hear you were looking for the Black Mambas to kill me? Unfortunately, the Mambas work for me now. Enjoy your last night. When the sun rises tomorrow, it will be doomsday for the Vanderbilt family. The line went dead. The receiver slipped from Cornelius's hand, and he collapsed into his chair, his eyes vacant. Outside the window, the brilliant lights of the Vanderbilt estate, once a symbol of their power, now seemed like beacons guiding them to hell. Mornings in Chicago were usually busy and orderly, but today, a suffocating madness hung in the air. It all stemmed from the bounty posted last night on the dark web by the mysterious organization known as Divine Retribution. $1 billion, a sum large enough to buy a small country, had sent the entire global underworld into a frenzy. The Vanderbilt Group headquarters, a glass skyscraper that once symbolized Chicago's elite, was now completely surrounded. But the crowd at the entrance wasn't made up of reporters or protesters. It was filled with menacing individuals with hungry eyes and suspicious bulges at their waists. In the chairman's office on the top floor, Cornelius Vanderbilt looked as if he had aged 10 years overnight. He was slumped in his $1 million mahogany chair, his hair a mess, his eyes bloodshot, clutching a satellite phone. Hello, Mr. Chairman? It's me, Cornelius. I'm not asking for anything else. Just send someone to protect me. What? Bad signal? Hello? Hello? In a rage, Cornelius hurled the satellite phone at the floor-to-ceiling window. It bounced off the bulletproof glass with a loud thud, leaving a white mark that reflected the dense, ant-like crowd below. Just then, the heavy mahogany office door was kicked open from the outside. It wasn't an assassin who walked in, but his secretary. However, the woman who was usually so obedient was now holding a cardboard box with a cold, indifferent expression. Mr. Vanderbilt, this is your resignation letter, the secretary said, tossing a piece of paper onto his face. I've already printed it for you. Also, everyone in the finance department has quit. You dare to mutiny? I'm the chairman. I'm not dead yet. Mr. Vanderbilt, don't be naive. The Vanderbilt Group stock is now worthless paper. The banks have frozen all assets, and even the utility bills for this building are 3 months overdue. You're a liability now. Who's going to recognize you as chairman? With that, the secretary walked out without a backward glance, grabbing the solid gold pen holder from his desk on her way out. Bitch, come back. Put down my gold pen. Cornelius roared, trying to chase after her, but he was blocked by 2 burly men at the door. They were the bodyguards he had hired at great expense. One of the bodyguards chewed his gum. Save your energy, Mr. Vanderbilt. The only reason we're still here is because someone offered us more money to watch you and make sure you don't kill yourself. Who? The bodyguard didn't answer, simply stepping aside respectfully to clear a path. From the end of the hallway came the sound of unhurried footsteps. The crisp tap of leather shoes on the marble floor echoed with each step, each one like a hammer blow to the hearts of the Vanderbilt father and son. A young man in a custom-tailored navy blue suit walked in leisurely, a stunningly beautiful and coolly elegant woman on his arm. Behind them followed a large group of elites in suits, each carrying a briefcase, looking like a professional mergers and acquisitions team. Good morning, Mr. Vanderbilt, Ethan said as he entered the office. He glanced around the lavishly decorated space, his eyes finally settling on Cornelius's pale face. So this is the office of Chicago's richest man? The taste is a bit tacky. Ethan picked up a golden-toed statue from the desk, weighed it with a look of disgust, and then tossed it into the trash can with a clatter. Cornelius stared at the man before him, the venom in his eyes practically overflowing. Ethan, it was you. You're the one who posted the bounty. You devil, what do you want? Even in an execution, there's a limit. What you're doing is illegal. Ethan pulled over a chair for Chloe to sit, then leaned lazily against the edge of the desk. Did you think about the law last night when you sent assassins to kill me? I guess it's one rule for you and another for everyone else. Huh. Ethan snapped his fingers. A lawyer from his entourage stepped forward, opened his briefcase, and spread a thick stack of documents on the desk in front of Cornelius. Mr. Vanderbilt, allow me to introduce myself. I am Mr. Ethan's chief legal counsel. This is a comprehensive asset transfer agreement for the Vanderbilt Group. According to our calculations, the Vanderbilt Group currently has liabilities of $23 billion. Due to force majeure, its asset valuation is currently negative $5 billion. Normally, this company would be heading for bankruptcy and liquidation, but my boss, Mr. Ethan, is a kind man and is willing to acquire it. Acquire it? How much are you willing to pay? As long as you call off the bounty, the company is yours. It's all yours. Ethan smiled and held up one finger. $10 billion, Cornelius asked. Ethan shook his head. $1 billion. Cornelius gritted his teeth. Ethan still shook his head. 100 million? Cornelius's heart sank. Ethan's smile vanished. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a coin. It was a rusty penny, long out of circulation. Clink. The coin spun on the desk, making a grating sound before it toppled over in front of Cornelius. To buy everything the Vanderbilt family has built over 3 generations, including this building, all your properties, cars, stocks, and even the suit on your back. Cornelius was so enraged, he coughed up another mouthful of blood and slammed his hands on the desk. This is too much. I'd rather burn it all and give it to beggars than let you have it. Burn it. Ethan's eyes turned cold. You can try. But let me remind you, those 3,000 bounty hunters downstairs are getting very impatient. If I were to rescind the capture alive order, how do you think they would rush in here? Cornelius froze instantly. Dad, sign it. I want to live. I don't want to die. William broke down completely, crawling over to hug his father's legs, his face a mess of tears and snot. Looking at his pathetic son, the light in Cornelius's eyes finally died. He picked up the pen with a trembling hand. Ethan, you are ruthless. The moment he signed, he felt his soul being ripped from his body. The empire he had spent his entire life building was sold for a single penny to the man he once considered a worthless delivery boy. Here, a gift for you. Do you like it? Ethan took the signed contract and handed it directly to Chloe. She held the heavy document, her mind reeling. This was the behemoth that had nearly destroyed her family, and now it was hers, acquired with such casual ease. Ethan, this is too much. Chloe felt like she was dreaming. Hey, we're family. Don't be a stranger. Besides, I can't be bothered to manage these broken companies. From now on, you're the chairwoman of the Vanderbilt Group. Oh wait, let's call it the Sterling Tycoon Division 1. Ethan patted Cornelius's shoulder as if comforting a stray dog. All right, don't look so glum. To celebrate the successful acquisition, I've decided to take you and your son out to experience life. Experience what? Cornelius had a very bad feeling about this. Shopping. Ethan snapped his fingers. System, activate, Tycoon's humiliation spree mode. Detecting host engaged in high satisfaction plot point. Mission issued. Take the former richest man shopping. Mission requirement. In front of the Vanderbilt father and son, buy everything they ever wanted but couldn't afford, and force them to be your porters. An hour later, at Chicago's largest luxury car dealership, the showroom displayed the world's most exclusive supercars. This used to be William's favorite place to show off, but he only ever dared to look at the multimillion-dollar entry-level models. He wouldn't even dream of touching the Bugatti La Voiture Noire in the center of the showroom, valued at $18 million. But today he was here, though only as a porter. William, in a torn shirt and drenched in sweat, followed behind Ethan, while his father, Cornelius, trailed after them like an old servant, his head bowed meekly. Mr. Vanderbilt Jr., does this car look familiar? Ethan asked, pointing at the Bugatti with a smirk. I heard you begged your dad for this car for 6 months, but he never bought it for you. William swallowed hard, his eyes filled with longing and jealousy. Why yes. Do you like it? I love it. Then take a good look, Ethan said, walking over and patting the car's hood. Because from now on, you'll only be driving it in your dreams. With that, Ethan turned to the sales manager. Charge it, full price. No need for a test drive, just give me the keys. Right away, Mr. Ethan, the manager said, his hands trembling with excitement. Ethan took the keys and, under William's despairing gaze, casually tossed them to Blade. This is for you. Use it for grocery runs from now on. Stop driving that beat-up van. It's embarrassing. Everyone was petrified. An $18 million Bugatti for grocery shopping? Given to a bodyguard? Blade held the keys, tears streaming down his face, and immediately dropped to his knees. Boss, you've given me a new life. My life is yours from this day forward. William felt worse than if he had eaten dirt. The dream car he had coveted for so long was casually given away to a thug. Don't worry, we're not done yet, Ethan said, continuing through the showroom. That Rolls-Royce, I'll take it. That LaFerrari, buy it, but the color is too flashy. Have it repainted black. And those Aston Martins, give one to each of the cleaning ladies at my company to make their commute easier. In just half an hour, Ethan had bought out the entire dealership, spending a total of $80 million. Cornelius and William followed behind, their arms laden with freebies like car covers and air fresheners, exhausted like dogs. Every time Ethan swiped his card, their hearts seized. Ethan, please, stop buying things. We were wrong, just give us a quick end. Cornelius finally broke down, falling to his knees and wailing. Ethan stopped and looked back at the father and son. A quick end? Did you give me a quick end when you kicked me out of my home and left me to deliver food in a storm? Ethan's eyes turned ice cold. I told you, I would make it so you couldn't live, but you couldn't die either. Blade, take these 2 pieces of trash to the police station. Tell the warden to give them a deluxe suite and find some enthusiastic roommates to take good care of them. I hear Mr. Vanderbilt Jr. has very soft skin. He should be popular. Understood, Mr. Ethan. Don't you worry. I know how things work on the inside, Blade said with a sinister grin, dragging the Vanderbilts out like dead dogs. No, Ethan, you can't do this. I'm like a brother to you. Big brother, I was wrong. William's desperate screams echoed through the showroom before finally fading away. After dealing with the Vanderbilts, Ethan let out a long breath. What's wrong? You're not happy? Chloe asked, walking to his side and gently taking his arm. No, I'm just a little bored, Ethan said, looking out at the bustling street. The Vanderbilts fell too quickly. There was no challenge. Chloe laughed. If anyone else heard you say that, they'd probably want to kill you. That was the Vanderbilt family, the Titans of Chicago. Well, the Titans have fallen, Ethan said, taking her hand. Come on, I'll take you somewhere. Where? To see your new office. The top floor of the Vanderbilt Group Tower. The view is nice, perfect for a little romance. Just as they were about to leave, Ethan's phone rang. It was an encrypted number with no caller ID. Frowning slightly, Ethan answered the call. From the other end came an old but powerful voice, carrying the weight of someone long accustomed to being in charge. Young man, I must say, you've caused quite a stir in Chicago these past few days. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Who is this? Who I am is not important, the old man said calmly. What is important is that while the Vanderbilts were worthless, they were still dogs I kept. And you should always consider the owner before you strike a dog, shouldn't you? So I took care of the pup, and now the old master shows up. What, you want to post a bounty too? Ethan was unfazed, even a little excited. Finally, a worthy opponent. Hey, a bounty? I don't play such low-level games. The old man's voice dripped with scorn. Young man, you may have some money and some skill, but in the face of true power, money is just a number and force is for brutes. I am the steward of the Rockefeller family in Washington, D.C. My young master is very interested in that tycoon system of yours. Oh, my apologies. I mean your ability to conjure funds out of thin air. Ethan's pupils contracted sharply. He knew about the system? A word of advice, the old man's voice continued. In 3 days, the Rockefellers will send someone to Chicago to clean up the Vanderbilt mess. When they arrive, I hope you'll be sensible and hand over what you have. Otherwise, you will learn the meaning of true despair. The line went dead. Ethan stood there, phone in hand, silent for a long time. The Rockefellers of D.C. They were one of the country's true ruling families, a behemoth rumored to control the nation's economic lifelines. Compared to them, the Vanderbilts truly were less than dogs. And somehow, they seemed to know about the system. Ethan, what's wrong? Who was that? Chloe asked, sensing his unease. Ethan snapped out of it, the gravity in his eyes instantly replaced by a fervent battle lust. Just some self-important old man. Ethan put his phone back in his pocket and looked north, towards Washington, D.C. Chloe, it looks like our vacation is over. The next game might get a little exciting. System, Ethan called out in his mind, detecting precursor to world-class crisis. System upgrade mission triggered. Mission, the advancing tycoon. Objective, before the Rockefellers arrive, elevate your power, wealth, combat ability, and connections to a dominant level. Current rewards, 1. Prescient future technology. Blueprint for a basic military-grade factory. 2. Godslayer recruitment order. Recruit 100 absolutely loyal genetically engineered soldiers. 3. Infinite cash flow mode 24-hour duration. All purchases, regardless of amount, will not deduct funds but instead provide a 200% rebate. Hearing the third reward, Ethan laughed, a wild and unrestrained laugh. Infinite flow? Double rebate? The Rockefellers. Huh? You want to play economic warfare? Fine. I'll use my money to burn a hole right through your precious Washington, D.C. Ethan grabbed Chloe's hand and strode towards the Bugatti he had just bought. Let's go. Time to spend some money. Tonight, I'm going to double Chicago's GDP. The Caesars Palace, a massive cruise ship, was the venue for tonight's charity gala of the century. Though nominally for charity, it was actually a power-flexing event for Western capital and their domestic partners. The event was hosted by the Rothschild family, with the Rockefeller family of D.C. listed as a co-sponsor. The scale of this event far surpassed any before. The guests were not local Chicago businessmen, but Wall Street titans, European nobility, and the heirs of America's most powerful families. When Ethan's black Lincoln Continental pulled up to the end of the red carpet, a sea of camera flashes erupted. Ethan stepped out of the car with a gorgeously dressed Chloe on his arm. She was wearing a starlight flow gown personally designed by Ethan, made from future materials purchased from the system. As she moved, the dress shimmered as if a galaxy were flowing across it, instantly outshining every Hollywood starlet and socialite present. So that's Ethan? I heard he developed a 6th-generation jet engine. Is that true? He's offended both the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. This is probably a trap for him tonight. The whispers were constant. Ethan ignored them all, leading Chloe straight into the grand ballroom. The ballroom was magnificent, but in the very center stood a massive display stand covered by a red cloth, surrounded by heavily armed foreign bodyguards. That is tonight's grand finale item, a cold voice said from nearby. A middle-aged man in a traditional suit, rolling 2 steel balls in his hand, approached them. Behind him were David Rockefeller Jr., his face full of resentment, and Henry, who had fled from Ethan before. This man was the Rockefeller family's second-in-command, David's uncle, Nelson Rockefeller, known as the Smiling Tiger. "Mr. Ethan, I've heard so much about you," Nelson said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, giving a slight nod. "I'm Nelson Rockefeller. I hear my good-for-nothing nephew received quite a bit of your hospitality in Chicago." "I wouldn't call it hospitality," Ethan replied calmly. "I just helped him with some car repairs and taught him a lesson or two about how to be a decent human being." David looked ready to charge forward but was held back by Nelson. "Young man, a sharp tongue is a fine thing, but some things can't be protected by words alone." Nelson pointed to the display stand. "Tonight's auction was specially prepared for you by Mr. Henry. I hope your wallet is as big as your mouth." With that, the three of them shared a meaningful laugh and walked towards the VIP section. "What are they planning?" Chloe asked, a sense of foreboding washing over her. "Whatever they're planning," Ethan said, his eyes turning cold, "they're not leaving with a single penny tonight." The dinner began, and after a series of long speeches, the main event, the auction, finally started. The first few items were jewelry and paintings. Though valuable, Ethan didn't bid. He was waiting for the so-called grand finale. Finally, Henry walked onto the auction stage. His face was alight with vengeful glee as he locked his eyes on Ethan in the audience. "Tonight's final auction item is a national treasure of China, lost overseas for 100 years. He dramatically pulled back the red cloth, and the crowd gasped. In the display case was a bronze dragon head, still covered in dirt but exuding an undeniable majesty. It was the most mysterious of the 12 zodiac heads from the old summer palace, its whereabouts unknown until now. "This dragon head was acquired by my family as a spoil of war during the conflict a century ago," Henry said, deliberately emphasizing spoil of war, a blatant insult to every Chinese person in the room. "The starting bid is $1 billion US. Each increment must be no less than 100 million. Henry looked provocatively at Ethan. "Mr. Ethan, I hear you're a patriotic businessman. Now is the time to prove your patriotism. If you don't buy it, this dragon head will be sent to a museum tomorrow, permanently labeled as a testament to the conquest of the East." The Chinese businessmen in the audience were furious. "Shameless. This is robbery. How arrogant. This is a slap in our face. $1 billion. That's just too much." All eyes turned to Ethan. It was a no-win situation. If he bought it, he would be slaughtered like a pig, funneling money to Western capital. If he didn't, he would be seen as allowing a national treasure to be humiliated, and his reputation would be ruined. Nelson sneered from the side. "What's wrong, Ethan? Why aren't you bidding? Where's your infinite money? Your patriotism? Don't tell me you're a coward." Ethan slowly stood up. He adjusted the buttons on his suit and looked calmly at Henry on the stage. $1 billion? Ethan raised his bidding paddle. "I bid 10 billion. The hall fell silent. $10 billion US. Even Henry was stunned. He had only planned to fleece Ethan for a few billion, but the man had just multiplied the price by 10. "Ethan, are you crazy?" Chloe tugged at his sleeve. "This is a trap set by these robbers. If you give them that money, they'll be saved." "Don't worry," Ethan said, patting her hand. "Whether they get it or not isn't up to them." On stage, Henry snapped out of his shock, his heart soaring with joy. With $10 billion, his family's crisis would not only be resolved, but they would also make a huge profit. 10 billion going once, 10 billion going twice. Sold. Henry slammed the gavel down impatiently. "Mr. Ethan, please transfer the funds immediately. We only accept instant transfers via the SWIFT system." He had it all planned. As soon as Ethan's funds entered the SWIFT system, he would use his access to seize the money, then freeze the transaction under the guise of an anti-money laundering investigation. In the end, he would keep both the money and the treasure. It was the ultimate gangster move. Ethan took out his black card and handed it to a staff member who approached him. The transfer interface appeared on the large screen. As everyone held their breath, waiting for the astronomical sum to be transferred, the screen suddenly flickered and turned blood red. "Warning, transaction failed. Error code 404. Your bank has been acquired." "What?" Henry was dumbfounded. "What do you mean, the bank has been acquired? This is Atlantic Union Bank. It's my family's own bank." Standing in the audience with his hands in his pockets, Ethan broke into a brilliant smile. "My apologies, Mr. Henry. Just 1 minute before the auction began, I used that $10 billion to complete a hostile takeover of Atlantic Union Bank on the secondary market. Which means," Ethan pointed to the POS machine, "I'm now just transferring my own money from one of my accounts to another. And you, as the former majority shareholder of this bank, for your involvement in massive financial fraud and embezzlement of depositor funds." Ethan snapped his fingers. The ballroom doors burst open, and a group of officers in Interpol uniforms rushed in. The lead officer held up a red notice. "Henry Rothschild, you are under arrest for stock market manipulation, money laundering, and commercial fraud." "What? No, this is impossible." Henry stared at the approaching officers, completely breaking down. I'm a Rothschild. I have immunity. Mr. Rockefeller. Mr. Rockefeller. He looked towards Nelson Rockefeller, but Nelson was already pale as a ghost, frozen in his chair. He could feel several red laser dots locked firmly on his forehead. They were the snipers of the Shadow Legion. Take him away, Ethan said with a wave of his hand. Henry was dragged away like a dead dog, leaving the dragon head on the stage. Ethan walked up and lifted the heavy bronze dragon head with one hand. A spoil of war? Ethan looked at the stunned foreign capitalists in the audience, his voice thundering. From this day forward, the tables have turned. What belongs to us I will take back piece by piece, whether I have to buy it or take it by force. Yeah. The audience erupted in a tsunami of applause and cheers. Countless Chinese businessmen were moved to tears. In that moment, a century of pent-up frustration was finally released. Chloe looked at the radiant man on the stage, her eyes filled with adoration. This was her man. He could take on the world by himself and still win. However, amidst the cheering, an unprecedented system notification sounded in Ethan's mind. Detected host has completed the Crush Old Capital achievement. Initiating final system upgrade. Upgrade complete. God-tier Tycoon System 3.0, Planar Overlord, mode activated. New function unlocked. Planar Marketplace no longer limited to Earth technology. Level 1 Cosmic Civilization technologies now available. Antimatter power, gene lock unlocking fluid, spatial folding technology. New function unlocked. Overlord domain within a 100-meter radius of the host. Gain absolute control over physical laws, e.g., doubling gravity, freezing time for 1 second. Final mission initiated. The Great Global Oligarch Purge. Ethan looked at these new functions, the golden light in his eyes intensifying, causing the very air around him to ripple with overflowing energy. Planar Overlord? Just then, Nelson Rockefeller suddenly stood up. He looked at Ethan not with fear, but with a strange, unsettling smile. Ethan, brilliant. Truly brilliant. Nelson clapped his hands as he slowly walked towards him. It seems the rumors were true. You really do have that thing. The Rockefeller family was originally planning to let you live, to use you as a tool for making money. But now, it seems you've grown beyond our control. Nelson pulled a black remote control from his coat. Do you know what this is? We've planted 3 tons of liquid explosives throughout this ship. The moment I press this button, no matter how much money you have, no matter what kind of black technology you possess, you will be instantly vaporized. Ethan, hand over your system, or let this entire ship of elites, along with your beloved woman, die with you. Nelson's finger hovered over the red button. The cheering in the hall came to a screeching halt. Chloe's face went pale. You're insane. Nelson, you've lost your mind. There are hundreds of innocent people on this ship. Innocent. Nelson laughed maniacally. The great do not concern themselves with trivialities. To obtain the Tycoon system, sacrificing a few hundred people is nothing. I would sacrifice half of Chicago if I had to. Ethan, kneel. Surrender the system, or I'll press it. Nelson's finger rested on the red button. Ethan looked at him as if he were a clown. Time stop, Ethan said softly. The Overlord domain activated. For 1 second, time froze. The entire world instantly turned gray. The spittle flying from mouths, the terrified expressions, the rolling of the waves, even the motion of Nelson's finger pressing the button, all were frozen in that instant. Ethan moved. As if strolling through a garden, he leisurely walked up to Nelson, took the remote from his hand, and then slapped him across the face. Time resumed its flow. Nelson felt a blur in his vision. The remote in his hand was gone, and a sharp pain erupted on one side of his face. He spun around 3 times like a top, several teeth flying from his mouth in a spray of blood. Clutching his face, Nelson stared in terror at Ethan, who was now a few meters away, toying with the remote. Are you a man or a ghost? How did you do that? What just happened? Did you teleport? Ethan crushed the remote, the pieces falling to the floor. I told you. In this domain, I am a god. He walked up to Nelson, looking down at the once mighty second-in-command of the Rockefeller family. The Rockefellers' time is over. This ship won't sink tonight, but the leaky vessel that is the Rockefeller family is going down for good. The party will continue tonight, but the next event on the schedule is a trial. Dragon 1 for colluding with foreign powers, attempting to assassinate a national hero, and planting explosives in a public place. The evidence is conclusive. Throw him overboard to feed the fish. Yes, sir. Ethan, you wouldn't dare. I'm a Rockefeller. My brother is. A loud splash cut off all of Nelson's shouting. The river water was cold and bottomless, just like the look in Ethan's eyes. He looked north. The Rockefellers had played their last card. Now, it was time to go to DC to settle the biggest debt of all. Chloe walked to his side and held his hand tightly. Though her palm was still trembling, her eyes were resolute. I'm going with you. Ethan squeezed her hand back, looking at the dragon head in his other hand, a symbol of sovereignty. Good. We're not just going to get justice. We're going to claim our new era. It was late autumn in Washington, D.C., the air bleak and grim. The old Rockefeller estate, nestled at the foot of the Blue Ridge Mountains, a behemoth that had witnessed centuries of change and survived countless power struggles, was today shrouded in an unprecedented fear. The sky was thick with clouds, hanging so low it felt as if you could touch them. Inside the main hall of the Rockefeller estate, the Hall of Loyalty, the atmosphere was suffocating. The current patriarch of the Rockefeller family, the old man John Rockefeller Sr., a man who could once make all of DC tremble with a stomp of his foot, now sat stiffly in his grand armchair. The two prized walnuts he had been polishing in his hand for half his life had been crushed to dust. Kneeling below him was David Rockefeller Jr., who had just managed to escape. On either side of the hall sat 7 or 8 old men with restrained auras and bulging temples. These were the foundation of the Rockefeller family's power, the Rockefeller 8, each one a grandmaster-level martial artist. Uncle Nelson, he was thrown into the river to feed the fish. David was still trembling uncontrollably. "You worthless fool, praising the enemy and demoralizing our own." John Sr. swung his cane, knocking David to the floor. John Sr. stood up. Though over 80, the murderous aura he had cultivated through a lifetime of conflict was still terrifying. Black magic? There's no such thing in this world. It's just some unknown, advanced technology. He scanned the room, his gaze as sharp as a hawk's. The Rockefeller family has stood in this capital for over a century. What storms have we not weathered? Even the great wars couldn't destroy us. On what grounds does this upstart think he can? Relay my orders. John Sr. slammed his cane down, shattering the floor tiles. Activate the Aegis defense system. That's the laser defense grid we bought from Academy for $20 billion. It can even intercept cruise missiles. The 8, listen up, guard the inner courtyard. If that man Ethan dares to set one foot inside the gate, kill him on sight. A crazed, desperate light flashed in John Sr.'s eyes. Release that thing from the forbidden area in the back hills. Since he wants to play with inhuman methods, I'll show him what a real monster is. Hearing that thing, the faces of the 8 grandmasters changed simultaneously, their eyes revealing deep apprehension, even fear. Just then, a dull thunder rumbled from high above. It didn't sound like natural thunder, but more like the sonic boom of some massive engine compressing the atmosphere at low altitude. Everyone at the Rockefeller estate instinctively rushed out of the hall and looked up at the sky. The next second, their pupils contracted. The thick clouds overhead were torn apart as if by an invisible giant hand. A massive, all-black, sword-shaped aircraft hovered silently over the Rockefeller estate. It blotted out the sun, casting a colossal shadow over everyone's hearts. It had no propellers, no jet engines. It just hung there silently, defying all known laws of physics. System store purchase. Interstellar Shuttle, Divine Punishment, Civilian Starter Edition. Even though it was the Starter Edition, it was more than enough to intimidate the natives of Earth. What is that? David collapsed to the ground, a puddle forming beneath him. Is that Ethan's ride? He's an alien. He's really an alien. John Sr.'s hands were shaking too, but he forced himself to take a breath and roared into his radio. Open fire! Shoot it down. The decorative rock formations around the estate suddenly split open, revealing 4 futuristic laser cannons and 6 anti-aircraft missile launchers. Flames erupted as 6 heat-seeking missiles shot towards the black sword in the sky, trailing long plumes of smoke. Immediately after, for high-energy laser beams, like the lightsabers of death, lanced towards the ship's underbelly. This was the Rockefellers' last line of defense, a firepower capable of annihilating a modern armored division. However, in the face of this devastating attack, the black ship didn't even raise its shields. A faint blue light simply glowed at its bow. System command. Activate physical law modification. Kinetic energy nullification. A bizarre scene unfolded. The 6 missiles, traveling at 3 times the speed of sound, suddenly stopped dead in their tracks about 100 meters from the ship, as if they had run out of fuel. Their velocity dropped to 0, and they simply fell out of the sky. The missiles landed in the estate's open grounds, on the rock formations, and in the fish pond. The massive explosions instantly obliterated the Rockefellers' air defense positions. As for the 4 laser beams, they hit the ship's hull and were reflected back as if from a mirror. The 4 laser cannons were instantly melted into puddles of molten metal by their own beams. In a single exchange, the Rockefellers' pride and joy, their multi-billion-dollar defense line, had self-destructed. When the smoke cleared, the estate was a scene of devastation, filled with rubble and the groans of wounded bodyguards. John Sr. stood at the entrance of the hall, his face covered in dust, his eyes vacant. His prized Aegis system was gone just like that. Just then, a hatch slowly opened on the underside of the ship, and 2 figures leaped out from a kilometer up. No parachutes, no gliders, just a freefall. They're insane. That's suicide, one of the Rockefeller masters exclaimed. But when they were just 10 meters from the ground, their descent suddenly slowed, defying inertia, and they landed as lightly as feathers, not even stirring up a speck of dust. It was Ethan and Chloe. Ethan wore a black trench coat over the same business casual suit he'd worn in Chicago. Chloe had changed into a sleek white tactical suit, carrying the case with the dragon head. They stood side by side in the center of the ruined estate, like a pair of gods descended to the mortal realm. "Mr. Rockefeller, a pleasure to finally meet you," Ethan said, looking up at the man on the steps who seemed to have aged a decade in an instant. A faint smile played on his lips. "Was that a loud enough introduction for you?" John Sr. pointed at Ethan, so angry he could feel blood rising in his throat. "Ethan, this is Washington, D.C., the heart of the nation. You dare to openly attack a private residence with heavy weaponry. This is treason." "Attack?" Ethan shrugged. "I think your eyes are deceiving you, old man. It clearly looks like the Rockefeller family was illegally stockpiling prohibited weapons, and due to improper handling, they accidentally detonated. I'm just a concerned citizen who rushed over to help with the fire." With that, Ethan snapped his fingers. "Dragon 1, send the video to the Department of Homeland Security." "Yes, sir," Dragon 1's voice replied from seemingly nowhere. Everything that had just happened had been recorded by the ship's holographic cameras. It clearly showed the Rockefellers firing first, and then their own missiles falling and blowing them up. Ethan hadn't lifted a finger. "You, shameless!" John Sr. trembled with rage. "Compared to the things the Rockefeller family has done, I'm still an amateur," Ethan said, his face turning cold as he stepped forward. "Go! The 8, kill him for me!" John Sr. shrieked. The 8 masters who had been watching exchanged glances. Although Ethan's entrance was terrifying, their pride as martial artists wouldn't let them believe that any mortal was unkillable. "Don't get cocky, boy. Taste my iron sand palm," a burly old man roared. He stomped on the ground, launching himself at Ethan like a cannonball, his blackened, iron-like palms striking towards Ethan's head with a vicious wind. The blow was powerful enough to shatter stone. Ethan didn't even look at him. System ability. Increase gravity 100-fold. "Kneel," Ethan said softly. The master, still in midair, was suddenly crushed by an invisible mountain, with no chance to resist. His entire body slammed violently into the ground in a brutal posture. It wasn't a kneel, it was a crash. His kneecaps shattered instantly, and the impact created a deep crater in the ground. He lay at the bottom of it like a decal, knocked unconscious. The scene fell silent. The remaining 7 masters skidded to a halt, staring in horror. His words become law? What level of power was this? A living god? Anyone else? Ethan asked, glancing around. "I don't mind turning this place into a parking lot." The 7 masters looked at each other. Then, with a silent mutual understanding, they backed away, turned, and ran. This was no joke. This was not something a human could fight. Money was good, but life was better. A bunch of cowards. John Sr. watched his hired masters flee, so angry he nearly had a stroke. By now, Ethan had reached the steps of the main hall. He didn't go in immediately, instead motioning to Chloe. "Chloe, give him the item." Chloe stepped forward, placed the case on the ground, and opened it. The majestic bronze dragon head lay inside, its gaze seemingly judging the decadent family. "John Rockefeller," Ethan's voice was as cold as ice. "This object was a tool you and your foreign partners intended to use to humiliate our nation. Now I have brought it back. I'm not placing it here as a gift for you, but to teach you a lesson." Ethan took a step up, his eyes boring into John Sr. "The dragon is a symbol to be revered, not to be sold. The Rockefeller family is not worthy of living in this house." John Sr. looked at the dragon head, then at the advancing Ethan, and the fear in his eyes finally turned to desperate madness. "Fine!" He let out a strange, owl-like laugh. "Ethan, you think you've won? You think your high technology makes you the master of everything? You know nothing about the true nature of this world." John Sr. suddenly pulled a black bone whistle, covered in strange runes, from his coat and blew it hard. A piercing shriek echoed through the back hills. Immediately, the ground began to tremble, and a nauseating stench wafted from the forbidden area. An inhuman roar shook the heavens. The wall of the back hills collapsed, and a 3-meter-tall humanoid monster, covered in black scales with blood-red eyes, charged out on all fours like an out-of-control tank. Everywhere it passed, the grass withered and the stone tiles corroded. "What is that?" Chloe's face paled. "A bioweapon. Ha ha ha. Ethan, behold," John Sr. cackled. "This is the ultimate weapon the Freemasons gave me, the Tyrant. It's a fusion of ancient creature DNA and a T-virus variant. It feels no pain, has immense strength, and its body is highly toxic." The Tyrant roared, locking onto Ethan, and leaped, its claws, powerful enough to tear through a tank, lunging for his face. Faced with this biomonster, Ethan's expression finally changed. It was a look of disgust. "This is your trump card?" Ethan shook his head. "It's too ugly." Just as the Tyrant's claws were about to touch the tip of his nose, Ethan's right hand shot up. There was no earth-shattering flash of light. A seemingly ordinary lightsaber simply appeared in his hand. No, it wasn't a lightsaber. It was a high-frequency particle cutter home kitchen model. Zip. With a soft sound, Ethan's arm swung in a graceful arc. Time seemed to freeze. The Tyrant's massive body flew over Ethan's head, and landed heavily on the ground behind him. There was no explosion, no shower of gore. A red line, as thin as a hair, simply appeared at the monster's waist. A second later, the upper half of the so-called ultimate weapon, impervious to blades and bullets, slid off. The cut was perfectly smooth, the internal organs cleanly sliced and instantly cauterized by the heat, without a single drop of blood spilling. A one-hit kill. A true one-hit kill. John Sr.'s maniacal laughter died in his throat, his mouth hanging open wide enough to fit a fist. He stared at the two twitching halves of the corpse on the ground, feeling his entire worldview collapse. That was a monster the Freemasons had spent $1 billion to create. A monster that could withstand rocket-propelled grenades. And it was sliced like a piece of tofu? Ethan retracted the particle cutter and clapped his hands as if he had just finished a trivial chore. He walked up to the completely broken John Sr. and kicked away the dragon-headed cane that symbolized his power as patriarch. Anything else? Ethan leaned down, looking into John Sr.'s cloudy, terrified eyes. If not, then it's time to settle our accounts. Back then, your Rockefeller family colluded with the Vanderbilts to set up my father, drive him to his death, and swallow up my family's assets. How do we settle that score? And just now, you ordered your men to fire missiles at me to kill me and silence me. How do we settle that one? John Sr. trembled, his lips quivering. I'll pay. All of the Rockefeller family's money. It's all yours. Hundreds of billions. Take it all. Please, just spare my life. Money? Ethan laughed. Mr. Rockefeller, you seem to have forgotten. Money is the one thing I don't lack. He stood up straight and looked to the sky. The divine punishment, hovering overhead, suddenly projected a massive holographic screen. On the screen were pieces of damning evidence, detailed down to the last digit, proof of the Rockefeller family selling national intelligence, their money laundering accounts, recordings of them ordering the assassination of competitors, and even the security footage of John Sr. ordering the use of prohibited weapons just moments ago. At the same time, on the streets of DC, every outdoor screen, every phone, every computer was forcibly taken over by a pop-up window, simultaneously broadcasting this evidence. The city was in an uproar. The nation was in shock. No! John Sr. stared at the screen, utterly defeated. This was meant to utterly ruin the Rockefeller name, to make them infamous for all time. This was a fate worse than death. To not just kill the body, but to destroy the soul, Ethan said calmly. John Rockefeller, I want you to watch with your own eyes as the century-old empire you were so proud of crumbles under the weight of public scorn. Just then, the sound of approaching sirens filled the air. This time, it wasn't the Rockefellers' protectors, but heavily armed special forces and a military tribunal enforcement team, dispatched by the highest levels of government. John Rockefeller Sr., you are under arrest for treason and crimes against humanity. As the cold handcuffs snapped around his wrists, the titan who had dominated the country for half a century finally bowed his proud head. As he was being led to the police car, he looked back one last time. He saw Ethan sitting in his throne-like armchair, Chloe in his arms, toying with the dragon head. Ethan raised an imaginary glass to him in a toast. It was the posture of a victor and the coronation of a new king. The Rockefeller family had fallen, utterly and completely uprooted. With the arrest of all core family members and the purging of their political protectors, the power structure of Washington, D.C. was reshuffled overnight, and Ethan became the one name no one dared to speak. That night, the Rockefeller estate served as Ethan's temporary residence. He stood on the edge of a cliff in the back hills, looking down at the brightly lit Capitol below. Chloe draped a coat over his shoulders. What are you thinking about? You've gotten your revenge. Aren't you happy? Ethan shook his head and took her hand. The Rockefellers have fallen, but it's not over. That monster, the tyrant, was the work of the Western Freemasons. He pulled the black bone whistle he had taken from John Sr. out of his pocket, his expression grave. The material of this whistle is not from Earth. It's carved from the bone of some higher dimensional creature and contains an energy signature that even the system can't fully analyze. The system just warned me that Earth's coordinates may have been exposed. Chloe was startled. Exposed to whom? Ethan looked up at the vast, starry sky. To the real predators. Just then, an unprecedented, piercing alarm blared in Ethan's mind. Warning, warning, crack detected in the planar barrier. Abyssal aura detected. Incursion coordinates. Center of the Pacific Ocean objective. Capture the planar overlord core and the host. Golden streams of data flowed frantically in Ethan's eyes. He took a deep breath and crushed the bone whistle in his hand. Looks like there's no time to rest. Chloe, tell Dragon 1 to assemble the entire Shadow Legion. Also, activate all weapon systems on the Divine Punishment. We're going to the Pacific. We have some guests who have traveled a long way, and I need to give them a proper welcome. Point Nemo, the center of the Pacific Ocean. This is the point on Earth farthest from any land, known to humans as the spacecraft cemetery due to its remoteness. But today, this stretch of ocean, often called the Sea of Death, was boiling like a cauldron in hell. 10,000 meters high, the pitch-black interstellar shuttle, Divine Punishment, hovered within the clouds, its optical camouflage engaged. In the cockpit, Ethan stood before a holographic projection table, looking down at the sea below. Beside him, Chloe wore a form-fitting nanocombat suit. Despite all the miracles she had witnessed, the data displayed on the holographic screen still made her scalp tingle. What is that? Under the sea? A city? Chloe asked, pointing to the dense cluster of heat signatures on the screen. The display showed a massive, pyramid-shaped complex 3,000 meters below the surface at Point Nemo, glowing with an eerie green light. Its scale surpassed even that of Chicago, and countless submarines and underwater mechs swarmed around it like ants. This is the true headquarters of the secret Western organization, the Freemasons, the Fortress of Atlantis. They've hidden themselves well. Ethan looked at the giant pyramid, a golden light flowing in his eyes. System analysis shows that the base's energy core is engaged in some kind of high-dimensional spatial resonance. They're summoning something. Summoning what? The tyrant was just a watchdog. This time, they're summoning the dog's master. Just then, Dragon One's voice spoke directly into his mind via neural link. Boss, the enemy has detected us. Their surface defense system has been activated. Before he had even finished speaking, the calm sea surface began to churn violently. The water erupted, and 12 massive metal pillars, each over 10 meters in diameter, rose from the sea, piercing the clouds. Immediately after, blinding beams of high-energy ions crisscrossed to form an impenetrable web of death, instantly locking onto the divine punishment in the clouds. Warning, high-energy strike detected. Energy level nuclear. The ship's AI blared. Finally decided to show yourselves. Have you? A cold, arrogant smirk played on Ethan's lips. If they want to play Star Wars, then I'll show them what a real dimensional beatdown looks like. System, purchase the planetary-grade orbital cannon, God's Flame, one-time trial version, deducting $500 billion. Space-based weapon is in position. Ethan raised his hand and made a gentle pressing motion towards the sea below. Let there be light. 30,000 kilometers away in orbit, a massive tungsten alloy kinetic weapon platform, disguised as a weather satellite, suddenly adjusted its orientation. A 6-meter-long, multi-ton, high-density tungsten rod was accelerated down an electromagnetic rail, plummeting towards Earth at a terrifying 20 times the speed of sound. The atmosphere was torn apart instantly. The extreme heat from the friction turned the rod into a falling sun. A few seconds later, the 12 metal pillars on the Pacific surface, still firing their death rays, along with 10 square kilometers of ocean, were completely vaporized in an instant by a pillar of destruction that fell from the sky. A delayed boom shattered the eardrums of whales 1,000 miles away. The massive shockwave created a 100-meter-high tsunami that spread out in all directions. The energy shield of the deep-sea fortress of Atlantis flickered violently under the blow, like a candle in the wind, on the verge of being extinguished. Inside the undersea fortress in the core council chamber, the hall was immense, its walls carved with totems of indescribable elder gods. 12 old men in red robes and gold masks sat around a circular table. They were the highest authority of the Freemasons, the 12 disciples of truth. At this moment, these masterminds who usually manipulated global finance, wars, and plagues, were staring at the crumbling ceiling above them, gripped by unprecedented panic. The rods from God. That was the rods from God, one elder shrieked in terror. That's a weapon that only exists in theory. How could that Ethan possibly possess it? Is he an observer from a higher dimensional civilization? We must speed up the ritual, the Grand Elder at the head of the table rasped, his voice hoarse. Half of his face, visible beneath his mask, was a rotting mess of writhing black tentacles. Only by summoning the abyssal beast can we survive. We will sacrifice the entire earth if we must to preserve our immortality. The sacrifice begins. The 12 elders simultaneously slit their wrists, dripping their blood into a black vortex at the center of the table. As the blood flowed in, the vortex began to spin wildly, and a nauseatingly evil aura erupted, piercing through the fortress's core and shooting up towards the surface. High above the sea, Ethan frowned. What a disgusting smell. He could feel an extremely malevolent energy awakening from the depths. It was an energy that did not belong to Earth, carrying with it a hunger that sought to devour everything. Chloe, you stay on the ship. Raise all shields, Ethan said, turning to her. The next part of this fight might get a little messy. You're going down there? Chloe grabbed his hand. It's too dangerous. That's 3,000 meters deep. Ethan gently kissed her forehead. Don't worry, I have a deep-sea combat suit. With that, Ethan walked to the edge of the hatch and leaped out. System activating. Poseidon-class battle armor. Equipment deployed. In midair, countless streams of blue nanometal flowed over Ethan's body, instantly forming a sleek, dark blue suit of armor. He held a trident, and the thrusters on his back spewed ethereal blue ion flames. Like a torpedo, Ethan plunged into the boiling sea. The moment he hit the water, the surrounding sea parted as if before a king. Ethan accelerated, his speed in the water surpassing that of a supercavitating torpedo. Ahead, the massive pyramid fortress was now clearly visible. Surrounding it, tens of thousands of biomonsters, tyrants with gills, semi-mechanical megalodons, and even humanoid octopus creatures, swarmed towards him like a hive. Ethan swung his trident. Overlord Domain, Absolute Zero. Within a 1,000-meter radius around Ethan, the seawater instantly froze. Countless charging monsters were flash-frozen into lifelike ice sculptures before they could even open their mouths. Ethan didn't stop, shattering countless ice sculptures as he crashed into the fortress's energy shield like a meteor. The tip of his trident erupted in a blinding golden light. It was antimatter annihilation energy. The supposedly indestructible energy shield shattered like a soap bubble. Ethan's momentum carried him straight through the fortress's outer wall, and he crashed into the core council chamber. When the dust settled, Ethan emerged from the rubble, trident in hand. The 12 elders, who had been performing the ritual, had been thrown to the ground by the shockwave and were covered in dust. "Go on," Ethan said, crushing the Grand Elder's mask under his boot to reveal the inhuman face beneath. "Why'd you stop chanting? Forget the words." The Grand Elder stared at Ethan in terror, the black tentacles in his body writhing, trying to attack. Ethan casually thrust his trident, pinning the Elder to the floor. Golden energy surged through the weapon, and the tentacles disintegrated into ash with a horrific screech. "Don't be in such a hurry to die," Ethan said coldly to the remaining 11 elders. "Tell me, what exactly is the Abyss? Why did you invite this evil into our world?" "It's too late. It's too late." One of the elders began to laugh maniacally. "The gate is open. The Lord has noticed this place. You will all die. You will all become the Lord's nourishment." Before he finished speaking, the black vortex at the center of the table suddenly expanded, swallowing the entire table before transforming into a towering black pillar of light that shot through the fortress's dome and into the sky. A shudder that originated from the very soul swept through everyone present. Ethan looked up sharply. From within the black pillar of light, a giant hand, covered in scales and eyes, slowly emerged. The hand was enormous. A single finger was 100 meters long. It was followed by a massive head with a face that defied description, covered in compound eyes, with green acid drooling from its mouth. The system's red warning box nearly filled Ethan's vision. "Warning, unknown higher dimensional being detected. Energy level assessment, level 3 civilization." A level 3 civilization? Ethan took a deep breath. This could be interesting. The giant monster didn't emerge completely. Just its upper body was enough to nearly fill the entire undersea space. Its countless compound eyes stared intently at Ethan, and it emitted a sound that directly targeted his brainwaves. "System, possessor, I have found you." The voice was like a billion insects crawling inside his brain, enough to drive a person mad. "Looking for me?" Ethan raised an eyebrow. "What, you want to take over my credit card debt? Surrender the primordial seed, or face destruction." The monster roared, its giant hand reaching for Ethan. The grab carried with it the power of a spatial lock, a law of physics that made it impossible to dodge. Ethan felt the space around him solidify, his body completely immobilized. This was the power of a level 3 civilization, operating on the level of fundamental rules. "Ethan, look out!" Chloe's terrified scream came through the communicator. "Don't panic." Ethan closed his eyes and took a deep breath. "System, I want to buy a cheat code." "Host, please specify." "I want to buy ownership of this entire plane of existence." The system was silent for a second, seemingly stunned by Ethan's audacity. Answering host. "Purchasing ownership of the entire Earth plane requires 100 quadrillion tycoon points. Host's current balance is insufficient." "Who said I wanted to buy Earth?" Ethan's eyes snapped open, the golden light within them turning a chaotic gray. "I want to buy, for this very moment, for this 1 second, the protagonist's halo, detecting host's intent. Activating special item, son of the plane, absolute luck duration, 10 seconds. Price, all remaining assets will be cleared. Confirm purchase, all assets cleared." That was hundreds of billions, maybe even trillions. Ethan didn't hesitate for a second. "Do it. Money can be earned again. If I'm dead, or if the Earth blows up, then the game is really over." Transaction successful. Host's current balance, 0. Son of the plane mode activated. For the next 10 seconds, you are the universe's daddy. An indescribable power surged through Ethan, and the feeling of spatial imprisonment instantly shattered. Ethan moved. He didn't dodge the giant hand, he charged straight at it. The trident in his hand vanished, replaced by a seemingly ordinary frying pan. That's right, it was the system's complementary divine artifact of luck. "Hiya!" Ethan roared, slamming the frying pan down on the Abyssal Lord's finger. A crisp, melodious metallic clang rang out. An unbelievable scene unfolded. The Abyssal Lord, a level 3 civilization being with star-destroying power, had its finger broken by a single blow from a frying pan. The monster let out a roar of confusion and pain. It didn't understand. This wasn't scientific. "I'm not done yet." Ethan's figure flickered, and he instantly appeared in front of one of the monster's giant eyeballs. This one is for all the people you've killed. A massive compound I burst, splattering green fluid everywhere. This one is because you're so ugly you scared my Chloe. Another eyeball burst. And this one is because you made me a broke bastard. Ethan moved like a character in a sped-up, hacked video game. The frying pan in his hand became a blur of afterimages, delivering thousands of blows to the giant face in just a few seconds. Every single hit triggered absolute critical, absolute stun, and absolute armor-pierce effects. The Abyssal Lord was completely dazed. It even felt a long-forgotten sensation, fear. This human was not right. This power was a causality-level attack, operating above the normal rules of physics. Get back in your cesspool. In the final moment, Ethan leaped high into the air and, with all his strength, brought the pan down on the monster's forehead. Be gone! The Abyssal Lord's massive body was sent flying backward by the blow, straight into the black vortex. The monster let out an indignant roar, but its body fell uncontrollably back into the abyss. Before the vortex could close, Ethan pulled out a dual-vector foil youth edition he had purchased from the store. It was a piece of paper with a funny face drawn on it. A little parting gift for you. Don't be a stranger, Ethan said, casually tossing the paper into the vortex. Goodbye. The vortex contracted sharply, and under the effect of the paper, space began to collapse and de-dimensionalize. The gateway to the abyss instantly became a painting, a flat oil painting hanging in the void. In it was the monster's terrified face. Everything returned to calm. Son of the Plane mode ended. Congratulations to the host for completing the Godslayer achievement. Current assets: 0. Ethan floated in the empty underwater ruins, looking at the devastation and the 12 elder corpses, disintegrated by the energy wave. He felt his pockets. He really didn't have a single cent left, not even enough for a cab ride back to Chicago. Ah, impulse is the devil, Ethan sighed. Just then, a submarine slowly approached. It was Chloe, piloting the Divine Punishment's escape pod down to pick him up. The hatch opened, and Chloe swam out, throwing her arms around Ethan. We won, Ethan said with a wry smile. But Chloe, I have some bad news. What is it? She asked nervously. I'm bankrupt. I'm completely broke now, a real pauper. Chloe stared at him for a moment, then burst out laughing. She cupped his face in her hands and kissed him. It's okay. You used to support me. Now it's my turn to support you. Don't forget, I'm now the chairwoman of the Vanderbilt Group, the Sterling Corporation, and Atlantic Union Bank. Ethan smiled too. Looks like I'm destined to be a kept man. They surfaced, looking at the long-missed sunlight. The waves of the Pacific had calmed, but Ethan knew this was only a temporary peace. The Abyssal Lord's parting words and the system's hint about the primordial seed both pointed to a much larger secret. What was the system, really? Why were all these higher-dimensional beings trying to get it? Detecting Host has completed all Phase 2 combat missions. Final mission initiated. The origin of the system. Please proceed to the Valley of Thunder in the Rocky Mountains. The remains of the previous system host are buried there. Ethan looked at the virtual panel, his eyes narrowing. The previous host? Remains? It seemed the ending to this story wasn't a simple tycoon's revenge, but a scheme that spanned millennia. Chloe, let's go home and pack. Ethan looked at the distant horizon. It's time for our final stop, to uncover the truth behind all of this. The Rocky Mountains, the Valley of Thunder. It was known as Hell's Gate, a place perpetually ravaged by thunderstorms with a chaotic magnetic field. For centuries, countless shepherds and explorers had vanished here, their bodies never found. But today, the thunder was more violent than ever. A bolt of purple lightning tore through the sky, striking the snow-covered valley floor. A massive black ship, the Divine Punishment, ignored the storm that could instantly destroy a tank and descended slowly like a mobile steel fortress into the depths of the valley. The hatch opened, and a frigid wind howled. Ethan walked out, holding Chloe's hand. He was no longer wearing his battle armor, just a simple black windbreaker, but his eyes were deeper than the mountain snow. Is this the final destination? Chloe asked, a shiver running down her spine as she looked at the cattle bones littering the ground. It's the end, and it's the beginning, Ethan said, looking at the system's radar in his hand. The dot representing the primordial seed was glowing fiery red, its location directly beneath their feet. Let's get to work, Dragon One. Yes, sir. The Shadow Legion, already on standby, began operating 2 massive laser drills, targeting the giant black rock at the bottom of the valley. As the high temperature melted the rock, an astonishing secret was gradually revealed. It wasn't rock at all. It was an ancient and magnificent bronze starship, buried for untold millennia. Its design was archaic and desolate, its surface covered in intricate cloud and thunder patterns. The bow was a ferocious dragon head that, despite the erosion of ages, still radiated a suffocating imperial aura. This is the style of the Qin dynasty? Could the legends of the first emperor's tomb be more than just legends? Welcome to the command ship of the first emperor. The interior of the starship was not dark as one might expect. The moment Ethan stepped into the main control room, countless ever-burning lamps, Actually, cold fusion lights automatically lit up. In the center of the hall stood a throne cast from black gold. Upon it sat a skeleton clad in a black dragon robe. Even as bones, he maintained a posture of one hand on his sword, his gaze fixed on the heavens. The Shirbachi, a sense of absolute command over fate, transcended 2 millennia and still made one feel an urge to kneel. And before the skeleton, a crystal emitting a soft white light hovered in the air. The primordial seed. System, is this your previous host? Ethan asked softly. Yes. The system's cold, mechanical voice now held a trace of human weariness. Previous host, Ing Zheng, codename, Ancestral Dragon. System version 1.0, Civilization Conquest Edition. Cause of death. To repel the first invasion from the abyss, he exhausted all system points, forcibly overdrew his life force to activate the 9 provinces barrier and the Great Wall orbital defense system, and died of exhaustion. Ethan was filled with a profound respect. So the Great Wall wasn't just built to defend against the Xiongnu, but against hunters from the sky. Just then, the primordial seed suddenly vibrated, and a holographic image projected from the skeleton. It was a dignified, middle-aged man. Though only an image, his eyes seemed to pierce through time and space. Successor. Ing Zheng's voice echoed in the hall, thick with an ancient accent. By the time you see this message, I am already gone. I unified the 6 states, standardized the script and the roads, and thought I could bring lasting peace to our land. But alas, there are heavens beyond our heaven. Those greedy predators, the abyss, they covet Earth's coordinates. I exhausted the nation's resources to build the 12 metal colossi giant mechs and the Great Wall orbital cannon array. Though I repelled them for a time, I know they will eventually return. I have left behind the primordial seed. It records my unfulfilled ambitions and seals my final legacy. If you are a person who cares for this world, then merge with it and protect this beautiful land in my stead. The image faded. Ethan was silent for a long time. Then he stepped forward and reached for the primordial seed. Rest easy, old ancestor, Ethan said, his eyes firm. The war you didn't finish, I will fight. The money you didn't spend, I will spend for you. The primordial seed instantly merged into Ethan's palm. A massive flood of information rushed into his mind. The memories of Ing Zheng, the blueprints of ancient technology, and the defense permissions for the entire planet. Detecting successful primordial seed fusion. Final form of the Tycoon system activated. Earth Online Administrator mode. Congratulations. Host, you have inherited the first Emperor's legacy. Current account balance. Immeasurable, as you have inherited the entire luck and historical foundation of the Chinese civilization. At the same moment Ethan merged with the primordial seed, a cataclysmic event occurred outside. The sky above the mountains shattered, not just a small crack like before, but the entire firmament turning blood red. Countless massive black warships poured out of an interdimensional rift like a swarm of locusts. It was the main fleet of the abyssal civilization. They had finally locked onto Earth's coordinates and launched their final assault. Warning, warning, Star Killer level strike detected. Enemy count, 100,000 ships. Estimated time until Earth's destruction, 10 minutes. Chloe looked at the alarm on her wrist, her face pale. Ethan, this time, can we really stop them? That's 100,000 starships. Ethan slowly opened his eyes. His pupils had turned completely golden, radiating the authority of an administrator. He glanced at his own zeroed-out personal account, then at the legacy account on the system panel, which was glowing with a dragon emblem. Fight! Ethan laughed, a wildly arrogant laugh. Why would we fight? Since the old ancestor left me an inheritance, he clearly meant for me to squander it. He took Chloe's hand, walked out of the ancient ship, and stood at the highest point of the valley, facing the overwhelming alien fleet. He raised his hand and snapped his fingers. I want to make a purchase. Host, please specify. I want to buy this history. Awaken the 12 metal colossi titan mechs. Awaken the Great Wall Star-Ring defense array. Awaken the Million-Man Terracotta Ghost Legion. Payment method, 5,000 years of Chinese national luck. Payment successful. Awakening. The next second, the entire land of China began to boil. In Xi'an, at the site of the first emperor's mausoleum, the earth trembled violently, and the burial mound exploded. The clay on the surface of the thousands of terracotta warriors instantly peeled away, revealing nanometal bodies that gleamed with a cold light. Their eyes glowed red, and the bronze swords in their hands instantly became plasma blades. A heaven-shaking war cry echoed as a million mechanical soldiers soared into the sky. At the same time, at the ruins of the ancient capital, 12 colossal bronze mechs, each 1,000 meters tall, burst from the ground. Each one radiated energy comparable to a nuclear power plant, wielding giant axes and halberds, like ancient gods reborn. Even more shocking was the Great Wall. The ancient, winding wall now glowed with a brilliant golden light. Its bricks fell away to reveal the superconducting railgun array that had been buried beneath it for 2,000 years. What is this? High above, the commander of the abyssal fleet stared as the planet below suddenly came alive, his tentacles going rigid with shock. Who gave you permission to look down upon my domain? Amplified by the primordial seed, Ethan's voice didn't just thunder across the globe, it detonated directly inside the mind of every single alien. With a single wave of his hand, he commanded, "Kill!" The Great Wall transformed into a golden dragon, and countless beams of antimatter light shot into the sky, instantly vaporizing the first wave of the alien vanguard. The 12 Titan colossi leaped into the clouds, their massive weapons cleaving through kilometer-long motherships with every swing. The million-strong Terracotta Ghost Legion surged into the enemy ranks like a black tide, engaging in brutal boarding actions. It was a slaughter that transcended time and space, the furious roar of Earth's civilization against its predators. Ethan stood atop the mountain peak, watching the spectacular fireworks. "Chloe, isn't it beautiful?" Chloe was mesmerized, tears blurring her vision. "It's beautiful. The most expensive fireworks I've ever seen." "It's not over yet," Ethan said, his eyes fixed on the largest ship in the sky, the Abyssal Mothership. "If we're going to squander a fortune, let's go all the way." He raised his hand again. "System, one last purchase. I want to buy Earth's Ascension. Push this planet to a level 4 civilization for me. Payment confirmed. Consuming all remaining luck. Loading planetary engines. Loading quantum shields. Loading causality weapons. Planetary ascension initiated." A white light, bright enough to illuminate the entire galaxy, erupted from Earth's core. In that instant, the abyssal fleet vanished like snow in the sun, not even leaving dust behind, erased by the laws of causality. Earth's size didn't change, but its energy level had leaped to a new plane. From this day forward, the blue planet would become a truly forbidden zone in the universe. 3 months later, the abyss had receded and civilization was rebooting. Although it had been through a great war, under the restorative power of Ethan's abilities, the cities were not only restored but had become even more futuristic. The rooftop garden of the pinnacle had now been transformed into a crystal palace floating in the clouds. It was the site of a wedding. Chloe wore a wedding dress named A Love That Overturns Cities, crafted by Ethan from the core materials of the Abyssal Mothership, fused with deep-sea pearls, its value immeasurable. On her father's arm, she walked step by step towards the man at the end of the aisle. Ethan, now the recognized guardian of Earth and protector of human civilization, was still smiling like a young boy, his eyes only for the bride walking towards him. Candy, in a little flower girl dress, waddled behind, holding the train and grinning from ear to ear. "Mr. Ethan," said the venerable Mr. Anderson, the officiant, his face flushed with excitement, "do you take Miss Chloe Sterling to be your wife? For richer or for poorer?" At the word poorer, the guests broke into good-natured laughter. The whole world knew that while Ethan's personal account was at 0, he owned the entire planet. "I do," Ethan said, looking deeply into Chloe's eyes. "Ms. Chloe Sterling, do you take Mr. Ethan to be your husband? For better or for—" "I do." Chloe cut in before Mr. Anderson could finish, sending the whole crowd into another round of laughter. Amidst a shower of flower petals and cheers, the two embraced in a deep, loving kiss. Just then, a long-unheard system notification sounded in Ethan's mind. "Congratulations to the host for completing all main missions. The God-tier Tycoon system's purpose is fulfilled. Preparing to unbind and seek the next civilization's spark. Parting gift. Host will retain the golden eyes and enhanced physique abilities. Goodbye, host. May you find happiness in the world you personally bought." Ethan paused. Unbinding? The system that had accompanied him from a delivery driver to the king of the world was really leaving. A faint sense of loss washed over him, but he quickly let it go. He could feel the warmth of Chloe in his arms, hear Candy's laughter, and see the sincere blessings from the crowd below. He didn't need the system anymore. He already possessed the most precious treasures in the world. "Ethan, what's wrong?" Chloe asked softly, noticing his distraction. Ethan came back to his senses, looked at the woman he loved so deeply, and broke into his brightest smile. "Nothing, just that my secret stash of cash just got confiscated." Chloe giggled, leaned close to his ear, and whispered, her breath warm, "It's okay. Tonight, I'm all yours. Besides, I deposited the 100 billion the company made into this card. The pin is your birthday." She discreetly slipped a card into his hand. Ethan looked at the card in his hand, then at his blushing wife, and suddenly thought that being a kept man was actually pretty great. "Honey, let's go on our honeymoon." "Where to?" Ethan looked up at the vast, starry sky. "I hear the sunsets on Mars are nice. Since we've already bought Earth, we might as well go develop Mars too." "You're impossible. You spendthrift." The sun was bright, the breeze was gentle. Ethan held Chloe in his arms, and under the watchful eyes of the entire world, they walked towards their happy future together. And the legend of the ultimate tycoon would forever be told beneath these stars.